Hello, welcome to the live stream, everyone. We've got 8 in the room so far, 8 thumbs up, 9 in the room. Let me know who's in the room. Say hello. Don't be shy. And let's get this live stream cracking, yeah? So I hope you've all been enjoying the content. Last week we had the podcast on the 5 aggregates. I hope you all enjoyed that. That was one that me and Guy Young actually were really keen to get into. Okay, here we go. Miss Sen, good to have you with us again. How is Montreal today? Luther, Ohio in the house. Good to see you, Luther. Awesome. Hope you're having a good day. Who else is in the chat? There's 9 in the chat at the moment. So very, very, very good. And so I hope, who enjoyed the podcast on the weekend, the 5 aggregates? Who watched that one? Len, first time. Hey, Len, welcome. UK in the house, bit late in the UK, Len. Tobin, welcome, my friend. I've been enjoying reading your comments, Tobin. Thank you so much for your support and your input. It's highly appreciated. Sue, always great to see you, Sue. Travis, Mississippi in the house. Trav, good to have you. Len, 1 a.m. If you stick around here, it might be 4 a.m. for you. So I hope you're a bit of a night owl. We usually are, aren't we? Michael McKinney, St. Louis. Welcome, Michael. Thank you. Miss Sen, yes. I'm glad you enjoyed that podcast, Miss Sen. It was something Guy Young and I have been working on for a while. Been really wanted to share, especially the 5 aggregates and the Yogacara school of Mahayana Buddhism. So I'm so glad you enjoyed. Daniel Stewart, Dan, welcome. New York in the house. It's Tobin Cameron. I got to remember because I know people use different avatars and so forth and so on, and sometimes I forget. So Cameron, I'll try to remember. Tobin's wife. Oh, okay. Now I got you. What about Tobin? Cameron, is he a fan? Colin, g'day. Cole, good to have you with us. How have you been, Cole? Been good? Excellent. So we've got 20 in the house and only 8 thumbs up. Remember, guys, give a thumbs up so we get this live stream out to as many people as possible while we're here. Grizzly Adams, Arkansas. Grizzly, thank you for being with us. Always good to see you. Lyle, Catty in Texas. I love Texas. Thank you, Lyle. Marcus, Mexico. Marcus Guzman, good to see you, Marcus. Excellent. Cameron, Tobin says, Tobin is getting there. I'm turning him on to Alan Watts. That's awesome. Travis, I love the podcast on the 5 aggregates. Travis, thank you. It's a very important subject, and a lot of people, just assume that Buddhism is kind of this nihilistic tradition and that it's a very fatalistic tradition, but it's not that at all, and I actually don't know why a lot of Westerners actually believe that. So that's why it was very important to explain the 5 aggregates and the Yogacara school of Mahayana Buddhism to everyone, especially in depth, especially in a cognitive science level. Daniel, I like your podcast. Thank you, Dan. Like what I was just saying, yes. Thank you. I appreciate it. Guy Young and I actually are going to try and make a commitment to going as deep as possible with a lot of the great texts and a lot of the great knowledge. So I hope I know you all appreciate that, especially the ones who are sincere and honest about this. I mean, I do get obviously the odd troll on my channel and the odd, say, particularly Westerner who has a kind of a nervous reaction or they are allergic to Eastern philosophy. So, but don't worry. I take care of them and I protect the people that are important in the channel. So Nothing Rain. Hello, Nothing. Thank you. Terry Lee Faturas. Terry, you're in Australia. Where are you in Australia, Terry? Guys, there's 26 people in the room, only 15 likes. Let's pump it up to 27 likes. Yeah, we got 27 in the room now. So good to have you all in here. Okay, let's get the questions rolling. Yeah, and remember, guys, if you want to support the channel and you want to watch the replay of this live stream, that will only be on Patreon. So most of the live streams will be exclusive on Patreon. The replays, I mean, obviously you're watching now live on YouTube, but the replays will be on Patreon. So if you want to become a member, make sure you head on over to Patreon and support the channel and support my work, or you can support me directly through PayPal. Links are in the description of the live stream, and I put some comments in the chat box at the top. Craig, welcome. Onward and upward, my friend. Thank you. Terry, escape from Victoria to Gympie. Terry, awesome. Gympie, that's only 2.5 hours from Brisbane. I'm in Brisbane at the moment. So Raul, awesome. Argentina in the house. Excellent. Raul, what time is it in Argentina? I guess it's the same time as America, probably Central America. Probably like Texas area. Chris, Melbourne. Chris, thank you. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. Chris Tracy, that is. So I used to live in Melbourne. So actually many, many moons ago. So that was, I lived in Melbourne from the year 2000 to 2004. Meredith, Oregon. Oregon in the house. Awesome. Thank you. Guys, let me know what content you've been enjoying. I'm assuming that you all enjoy the podcast, but I guess that you enjoy anything that pops up on my channel, I'm assuming. Michael, St. Louis, 7 p.m. Awesome. Welcome, Michael. Terry, I do Feng Shui and Qigong. We should meet up. For sure. It's a bit difficult to meet up sometimes with subscribers and this and that. And at the moment, with everything going on, it's a bit more difficult. And at the moment, I'm in the depth of writing a new book. So, but Guyan keeps telling me I need to take a week off sometime soon. So maybe I'll be taking a week off sooner or later. So that'll free up more opportunity, Terry, for sure. Craig, Ohio, now live in Seattle, though. Awesome. Also, in America, I'm assuming people are getting around and about, so that's a good thing. 30 in the house, 20 likes. Remember, give a thumbs up, everyone. Okay, everyone, let's get the questions cracking, yeah? Let's get the questions cracking. And guys, I don't know if you've pre-ordered my new book, but make sure you head on over to Amazon or Book Depository or Barnes and Noble, and remember, grab yourself a copy of Spiritual Freedom in the Digital Age: How to Remain Healthy and Sane in a World Gone Mad, which will be released actually in March 2022. But I already have a copy. I mean, for this book, I'm with a publisher in the UK, so they do things a little bit differently than the States. So I may run a competition for Christmas where I might give 2 of these to people for Christmas, which would be 3 months ahead of publication. So let me know if you'd be interested in that. I don't know what sort of competition I would run, to be honest. I mean, who knows? So Terry, I network with people, connector. I'm an author, a DX actress on young doctors. Is that an old show, Terry? Let me know. Raul, I love your content of enlightenment today. Thank you. That was the original content, actually, and that's kind of like I do go back to that every now and again. Sue, only had time to watch first few minutes of most recent podcast. So sweet the way you, Guy when she speaks. Much love between you two. Thank you. Make sure you get around to watching that one, Sue. It's very important podcast, that one. Len, Read Fasting the Mind and Effortless Living in the last 3 weeks. Well impressed. Len, thank you. I'm so glad you enjoyed those books, my friend. if you enjoyed those, I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy Enlightenment Now as well, if you get a chance. I'm pretty sure you're not reading them at this time of night in the UK, but I'm so glad you enjoyed. Preston, welcome, Preston. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Yes, that would be so much fun. Yes, I'll try and get around to that. Alan, is David Hawkins worth looking into? I'm seeking to find the fastest path to reawakening my Kundalini that went down, happened after taking a psychedelic. I don't know, Alan, I know a little bit about David, but I don't know a lot about David. So I'm not at liberty to say either or. I have friends that highly recommend him, but they always recommend a classic book, right? Like Power versus Force. I think David's classic, what he was well known for. But what I would say to you is I wouldn't focus on the Kundalini too much, right? Like, again, when you're talking about awakening, the Kundalini itself is still experiential. And many of us have probably had certain states of consciousness, either through psychedelic experience or through deep meditation and contemplation. But if you go chasing the Kundalini all the time, again, it will be an obstacle on your own path. And I know that you've probably heard all of that before, but that there's a lot of truth in that when you go deeper into the practice. Again, Kundalini is still part of, in some sense, the three states of consciousness, or Prakriti, we could say. So everything with nature. So it's not essentially, what will give you ultimate liberation. It is a glimpse, but it's not it, right? Like, so, because we can be chasing that too often, and then that creates its own obstacle. And then again, we are in the search for something, right? So realization, spiritual realization, enlightenment is when the search is over, right? When the search is over. And so that means when you have kind of that Laozi contentment of contentment, where, or like with the story of Buddha, where you've just completely resolved all desires. And so you've got out of that mental habit of seeking. That's why the second noble truth is craving. What the Buddha really means is seeking. Our mind has a tendency to seek, and it's the seeking that continues to get us in trouble, right? And that can even happen with spiritual experiences. So when you're chasing the Kundalini experience, for example, you're still in some sense in a sense of seeking and trying to, attain a certain experience that you once had before. So in a sense, you're living in the past, but I know what you mean, because, it can be a fantastic experience and it can give you a glimpse into the non-dual reality of the world. But as a human being, you can't be in a constant state of a Kundalini experience all the time. And yogis will tell you that, it's nothing. I haven't said anything really new. Terry, yep, it's an old one. Young Doctors. My mum might know that one, but my mum's passed away, but she loved all those old shows, those old doctor shows. I don't know how far. Terry, how far are we going back with that one? Len will get the new one. Thank you, Len. You're awesome. Nothing Rain. Are you a Taoist or a Buddhist? Both. And Hindu. I follow all three traditions, so. Brushstroke, thank the Lord for this live stream to break me away from getting into pissing matches in other comment sections. Yes. Brushstroke. Don't even read the comments, huh? Don't even read the comments. You can read probably the comments on my videos. Most people are sane who watch my content. Some obviously aren't, but definitely, I think what I would, obviously, what this book a lot is about it highlights the problems with social media, and we don't really need to examine that because we all know about it. But the comment section in YouTube is something I tell people, especially who are on the spiritual path, to try and avoid. Engage in these sort of conversations with people online. And I was thinking about it the other day. And I get this on my channel all the time. There's a general confusion on the internet. And I was thinking that there needs to be a word for internet confusion. I don't know what it could be, like internetopathy or something like this. But there's like a lot of people suffer from this internet confusion where you might post something, but they take it a certain way according to their culture, according to their perspective, and they don't see it as it is. And I find that very strange, because you should be watching or listening to content and consuming it as it is. You don't have to agree with it. If you don't agree with it, you move on. This is what mature adults do. But it just goes to show how many adults are still not mature, where they get emotional and they get triggered and they turn everything into, there's a common thing these days where everyone turns everything into politics. And it's like, I get on my channel all the time. I get a lot of people who will abuse people who are sincere in my community for their views, and they usually have a stereotypical Western political focus, and they think that Eastern philosophy is for idiots, and how can that bring peace, and we're going to go out and fight the world. This is their perspective. And it's like, yeah, you can go and do that. People have been doing that for thousands of years, and they haven't really attained any great results in that process. So, I don't understand why people feel a need to do that. I know that that's an insecurity thing. And that's part of demographic swamping, and also part of the intellectual imperialism, which is kind of a inherent cognitive trait within the West, due to, obviously the Christian perspective of, the doctrinal privilege of pushing the tradition on other people. So then over thousands of years, we've become, in the West, unfortunately, we've become people who have pushed our own views onto other people and just don't let them be shanti and let them live their own life. Obviously, from the Western perspective, that's not peaceful to leave people alone, which is just weird. Craig, I don't see like button, lol. Craig, it's a thumbs up. You'll see the thumbs up. I say like, I should say hit the thumbs up. Sorry about that, my friend. If you can hit the thumbs up, there's 29 thumbs up at the moment, 33 in the room. Thank you for everyone here. Love and appreciate all of you. Brushstrike, David Hawkins seems legit from what I've seen. Just another dude talking about non-dual awareness. Yeah, just another dude. All right, Brushstrike. Brushstrike, there's a really funny video with David Hawkins. I actually recommend all of you go out and try and find it. It's one guy, it's actually in audio. One guy comes up to David and says, "Oh, in the past life, I was Plato, I was Carl Jung," and David is just like, "Oh, no," because he put him really in his place. Like, you have such a high opinion of yourself, you don't even really know that you are these people, and so forth and so on. Again, people can take liberty with concepts in Eastern spirituality, especially when it goes West, and all sorts of problems happen. So, Kimberly, hey, from Ohio. Kimberly, welcome. Good to have you with us. Craig, drugs bring vision without knowledge. Yeah, that can be true. That can be true, Craig. And that reminds me of one thing that, I don't know if you guys all know the band Tool and their lead singer Maynard James Keenan. Maynard said many years ago, probably 20 years ago, was talking about kind of this, how a lot of people were getting involved in ayahuasca and psilocybin and other psychedelics. That was kind of the beginning of the trend back 20, 15 years ago. And Maynard kind of, and a lot of people were, especially from the West, weren't, well, like a lot of people do take a spiritual experience away from it, and it does have a deep meaning for them. But there's a lot, there's a big portion of people that actually just do it as kind of like you would do anything. If you were smoking a joint or drinking a beer, they'd think about it this way, but they don't get anything deep from it. And Maynard was saying that it's because they don't really have a frame of reference for their experience, and there's a lot of truth to that. I have a good friend actually who's been deep into Vipassana meditation for 20, 25 years. And he's been to South America and he's had a lot of ayahuasca experiences. And it has benefited him a lot because he had a frame of reference before. So he had like a meditation practice. He knew a lot of knowledge about Eastern spirituality, especially because, you know, Eastern spirituality is about the nature of consciousness. And then it's kind of ironic because he had a few ceremonies, and then when he came back to Asia, he even went further into his Vipassana practice. So he said it kind of enriched his Vipassana practice, but he got a lot out of it for that. But in saying that, he knew a lot of people in the ceremony and after the ceremony who didn't really get much out of it because they didn't really have a frame of reference. You know, they didn't have a frame of reference. They may have had a Western kind of religious perspective of the world, or they just didn't know much about the mind or the nature of consciousness. So, but there's a lot to be said about that. So, Art, thank you, my friend. Thank you for the super chat. You're the best, Art. And I always enjoy seeing you on Twitter. Yeah. Now I know who you are on Twitter. So that's awesome. Thank you, Art. So many good questions. Keep them coming, people. I love it. John C. in the house. John. Love you, John. How's the high desert today? Cameron Tobin says, asked me, have you read Shambhala Sacred Path of the Warrior by Chogyam Trungpa? I suspect you have. It's the book that got me started on the path. Actually, I have not read that, Cameron. I mean, I've read almost everything, but funnily enough, I haven't read that. But I've read a few of Chogyam's books, and a lot of people are pretty divided on him, right? But that's not for me to speak about. 41 people in the room. Everyone, thank you. Make sure you give a thumbs up. There's 33 thumbs up. Let's get it to 100 thumbs up. Yeah, let's get it to 100 thumbs up. Sue, yes, beware of unearned wisdom. This is true. This is true. And unearned wisdom on YouTube, comment section especially, is rife. Dennis Stewart, when other people talk about their soul, they are usually talking about Saguna Brahman, which is the qualities end form. Daniel, you're right. 100% correct. 100% correct. That's Saguna Brahman. That would be the same as kind of saying Prakriti in the yogic tradition as well. So Prakriti is all of the energy, the form, the thoughts, anything you can think of in kind of the manifest world, as opposed to Purusha, which is the pure awareness, sort of separate from that, which would be, we could say, related to Nirguna Brahman without qualities. And also Saguna Brahman here can also be related to what Guyang and I were talking about on the podcast too, the 5 aggregates of Buddhism, right? So when people, you are 100% correct. When people talk about their soul, they are talking about with qualities. So when we talk about, and I have a few different videos on the soul. So the differences with the way Easterners think about it as opposed to Westerners, right? Like, because in Christianity, for example, a lot of people will think of their soul as kind of going to heaven, or a place after birth, where we're all playing pool with Gandhi and Martin Luther King and you name it, and we're all having a great time, right? So there's a kind of a paradise, right? Like, but that's built on this illusion that you have this kind of soul that, it's difficult to say, right? Because like when we look at it from Eastern thought, the soul, what we would call the Jivatman. So the Jivatman is a combination of 2 Sanskrit words. Jiva is persona or ego, and Atman is undifferentiated consciousness, which is our true nature, undifferentiated, not as Jason, not as Daniel Stewart, but it's undifferentiated. It's that substratum that is identical with Brahman, right? So Brahman here, or Tao, that ultimate reality. And there's actually no separation between our Atman and the Brahman. The problem is we live life, right? So we live life, we accumulate a jiva, we have a persona, And then the idea in Vedanta is then the Jivatman. So Jivatman then is basically the individual representation of Saguna Brahman, if that makes sense, with qualities. And so that means it's composed of samskaras, which are latent impressions, mental subliminal imprints that make up our subconscious. Basically, samskaras is basically subconscious. And then vasanas, which is our habits and tendencies. And then also karma, which is our action and unconscious actions. And so those three make up what we would call the Jivatman. Now, the problem is if we don't get down into the samskara level, the latent impressions, and we kind of transform our mind, then our whole life will be dictated to by our vasanas and our karma. So our actions in the world, and even our unconscious actions, will be infused by our habits and tendencies, which are the result of our latent impressions and that we've accumulated since birth. And so that's what the Jivatman is. That's what the soul actually is from an Eastern perspective. Now, so the job is to thin the jiva out and to realize, the jiva is Shiva, so to speak. So, but you got to thin the jiva out to realize the Atman, and that's the role of all of our spiritual practice and our path here. Yeah. And even in this community and conversing and helping each other out and speaking about this is about, maintaining that focus and not falling into the delusions of the jiva. Don't go online. Yeah. Because the delusions of the jiva that's a storehouse in itself of delusion. So, but yeah, you're right. So the Atman, your undifferentiated state, Daniel, is actually no guna Brahman, so without qualities. So when people talk about, this is the thing, right? This is where Vedanta gets very, very frightening for especially Westerners when they first come across Vedanta, is when you say that there's kind of no soul, they're like, oh, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Like, so you have to kind of explain it at a deeper level. And you could say, like, if you really wanted to think of soul, you would say soul is in sense of Atman, but that wouldn't be technically right because of the way we think of soul in the West. Meredith Hoffman. I meditate listening to Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj and Sri Ramana Maharshi, and your presentation flow in very well. Meredith, thank you for even considering me along those two giants. So thank you so much, Meredith. I really appreciate that. And as I always say for everyone, one of the best books you can ever read is Ramana Maharshi's Be As You Are, edited by David Godman, and Nisargadatta Maharaj's I Am That. Oh my God. You read those two books, you may not return. I always get happy when I'm living in Tiruvannamalai, which I usually try to go to once a year. When I would see a young person, if they were carrying I Am That by Nisargadatta Maharaj, or they were carrying Be As You Are by Ramana, I'd always, I don't know if it's because, when I was younger, I was absorbed in those texts, but I would, it gives me, I was going to say hope, but I'm excited for the future of that individual because, I know they're diving deep, and when you're in Tiruvannamalai, it's the perfect place to dive deep in your practice, especially. Travis, I'm currently reading. Well, there you go. Trev. Awesome. It speaks of an absolute state, a supreme state, and God. I assume the absolute speaks of Brahman. I'm not sure of the other two, your thoughts. The absolute state. I have to try to remember what Nisargadatta was saying in the transcript. Because usually, like when we use the word of absolute and supreme, we're using both of those in relation to Brahman. I don't know if there's a kind of a Sanskrit term they're using, Trav, in relation to this. What do you mean by the stream? But God there would be relating to kind of the Ishvara level. So, and Ishvara there meaning like, the energy of the universe. You could actually relate Ishvara to the idea of the Abrahamic concept of God, I guess, because it's that level of the world, of the universe, where it influences the jiva, influences your life, and that God is what people pray to, and so forth and so on, to receive blessings and grace. So that's kind of like this Ishvara level, right? But the absolute level is Brahman. So, and that's where, as Nisargadatta constantly says, that's where we constantly have to be. So, and some people do relate like Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma to the Ishvara level, the God level. That's why in some texts like the Ishvara Gita or Lord Shiva's song, Shiva is equated to Ishvara, but here Shiva is equated to Ishvara as a representation of Brahman. And same within the Bhagavad Gita, Vishnu is or Krishna as the avatar of Vishnu is the representation of Brahman again. So this is where the two different schools of Shaivism and Vaishnavism come from. But the ultimate reality is the same. The gods, the representations of Brahman are different. So again, God there would be, as I was talking with Daniel, Travis, would be like the Saguna Brahman, not the Nirguna Brahman, not the absolute state of without qualities. Yeah, without qualities. Hope that kind of answered a little bit, but yeah, there's so much to go into, I bet. But I'm so glad you're reading that book. I think we talked about that last time, maybe. Ms. Zen, Ramana Maharshi suggested meditating on the self. That was the most effective way because the ego has the habit of changing shape with other practices. Concretely, how does this type of meditation take place? How do we ensure that this investigation during our meditation is not dualistic? Swami Sarvapriyananda said that when mind seeking is not possible, it is not possible to be awakened. Do you have a meditation suggestion? Swami Sarvapriyananda is correct there. See, again, like Ramana had given up the search, yeah? So the search was completely over. And so, but for us to get to that state, sometimes it may require a process of thinning out, yeah? Now, this is a big problem, especially, not just in the West, but in the East, because people will hear a story of Ramana Maharshi's sudden awakening at 16, right? And so people say, well, why can't, we go through that process and this and that? But it is true that some beings, very rare, have a certain aptitude to harness this at a young age, to abide as the self, again, the Atman, the undifferentiated consciousness, at a young age. Most of us aren't that fortunate, right? We don't have an aptitude for it. But Ramana did. And, we can speculate why, right? Ramana, he did come from a family where there were his family were conversing with Brahmins in the area. He lived not far from Madurai. And so it's not that his family were not sort of adept with Hindu knowledge, but I think that may have, in some sense, tilled the soil, right, for Ramana to have a deeper, like a realization at a younger age. And so his practice of abiding as the self was seamless because the search, in a sense, that was it. The search was over. Ramana said before his death, if anything that he was attached to It was Arunachala itself. And Arunachala is, for those who don't know, Ramana, he didn't move more than 3 kilometers away from Arunachala after his realization. At 16, he went straight to Tiruvannamalai, where Arunachala is, and Arunachala is considered a representation of Shiva. So he didn't move out from that from the mountain, and so he said, if anything, that he was attached to the mountain, but in a very innocent way. But like, so his firmness in the self was a lot stronger than us, obviously. And so that doesn't mean that people can't have sudden awakening and kind of have a permanent state of the self, but it means that most of us won't. So we have to constantly till the soil, continually merge ourselves in study, merge ourselves in meditation, and continue the work. Now, your question was suggested meditating on the self, effective way, the ego, the habit, changing shapes with other practices, concretely type of meditation. Well, this is this is vichara, right? This is self-inquiry. So, but the thing is, right, with this is that at the beginning there may be a little bit of effort, right? So, with Swami Sarvapriyananda saying mind seeking it's not possible to be awakened, he's right, but also sometimes you will need a little bit of effort to begin with, right? Like, so when we're talking about vichara, self-inquiry, we're talking about the isolating the I, right? So the sense of I within ourselves. So every time, so anything we experience in life, we apply discrimination, viveka, on how we are perceiving the reality and how we are like intuiting, or how we are interpreting the reality according to our jiva, right? So when you constantly bring your mind back to self-inquiry and you constantly observe the I, not to sound like there's a lot of non-dual fluff out there, but the question is, who is the one that sees this, right? So who is the one that has a problem with this? Who is the one that is trying to avoid this? Who is the one that feels a positive experience with this? And so you constantly, it can be a bit of for some people who are not familiar with this type of practice, it can be a bit of a mind bend, but you're constantly isolating the I and starving it of oxygen. And so what happens over time is the practice itself then becomes effortless. Yeah. So for Ramana, it was effortless because he had an aptitude for it. For you and I and for everyone else, we may need some effort, right, for it to become an effortless practice. And so then you'll benefit then you'll have the boon of awakening. But at the beginning of the practice, it can be very difficult. And if you've been around any large groups of people who practice self-inquiry, you will see a lot of people who suffer with the practice. I don't mean suffer in a bad way, but like they can't maintain their focus, right? So, for example, there was a satsang with Muji back in 2010 where a guy was asking Muji about like trying to stick to the practice, right? Trying to stick to self-inquiry. And he said, so he will be blissed out like for the first few hours of the day, and he's just sitting shanti. And then like his mind is submerged in the great teachings of Ramana and, Advaita Vedanta. And then pizza pops into his head, and then his mind is then fixated on pizza, right? So all he can think of is pizza. So he's like Ramana and then pizza. So, and we can say many things about that. Maybe he was hungry, this and that, but that's the nature of the mind, right? The mind will continue to throw things or obstacles in your way that then you chase that thought, right? Then you chase pizza. So then he said he was fixated on pizza, and he said in a moment's notice he was out the door and he was shoveling a veggie pizza into his mouth. So this is what can happen, right? Like if you have not had a lot of practice with self-inquiry or any sort of deep spiritual practice. So whereas for Ramana, because the practice is effortless, it's not that the thought of pizza doesn't arise. It's just that he sees it like the cloud in the sky. So that's interesting, isn't it? That one. But it's gone, right? So what I would say, Miss Anna, is just more practice. Try to isolate the I as much as possible, and notice those moments of when the mind is seeking something else. Yeah. So Michael McKinney, are you aware of any extremely suffering times in the lives of Lao Tzu, Zhuangzi, Buddha, etc., that brought them into a deeper understanding of pure love and awareness that can't be spoken completely? A little bit, Michael. The suffering differs, right? Like if we look at Lao Tzu's suffering, he suffered because of the. If we take Lao Tzu as a historical figure, I'm not saying that he existed or didn't exist, or he's not pure mythology. Take that as, let's push that aside and just think of the actual story of Lao Tzu. He was like a librarian / historian, right, in the Warring States period of China, and he had to deal with the sort of the political correctness and the nonsense of Confucianism through the Warring States period of China, very similar to this day and age. And he kind of was just like, that's it. I've had enough. Like, this is just stupid. And so when he got to, when he left and he got to one of the Western states, one of the guards asked him to, can he leave some wisdom? Because he knew he was a wise man, right? And then, so he wrote the 81 small chapters of the Tao Te Ching. That's what became the Tao Te Ching, if we take that story to be true. So the suffering of Lao Tzu was more of a kind of like a psychological suffering, right? Like he was dumbfounded by the idiocracy of the time. Yeah. And we can look at the similarity with this day and age with political correctness, people telling each other what to do, all based on their own version of moralism and all of this sort of nonsense. And a lot of us are probably like, oh man, I've had enough. I'm just, you haven't, I'm out. And that's what Lao Tzu did, right? He was just out. And so he and also Zhuangzi's suffering are similar, right? So Zhuangzi remained in the society, but constantly made fun of how stupid Confucianism is or was at that time, and how stupid people's political correctness and their tendency to kind of force their opinion and their views upon other people. So Zhuangzi just made fun of that, obviously, because Taoism is not about force, it's a path of non-interference. And so Taoism is constantly always making fun and poking, the hypocrisy and falsity within interventionalist means, no matter whether it's interventionalist beliefs or politics or religion or what have you, right? Interventionist means, so Wu is a path of non-interference. And so Zhuangzi suffered in that sense. So you can say that they had a great realization through that sort of psychological suffering. But when you talk about the Buddha, the story of the historical Buddha is pretty, self-explanatory, right? Like, so because Buddha came from a wealthy family, he saw the suffering of others, and he wanted to understand what the meaning of life was, so to speak. So he left his family to never return, right? And so it was, and when he put himself through 6 years of strict sadhana, it wasn't until he got to the river of Nirjana outside of Bodh Gaya that he was completely tapped out, and he was just hanging on a twig in the river of Nirjana. And then he kind of got across the stream or the river. I mean, the Nurajana River, if you go to Bodgai now, it's a bit dried up, but it can flow. But it wasn't until he accepted a milky soup from a young girl herding cattle that he kind of had a realization. So there was a suffering there for him, but it was more of a, like a physical suffering and psychological, obviously, as well, that gave him a deeper understanding to the nature of existence itself. So he went through all of that to realize that, you can't go from one extreme to the other. You have to find the middle way, balance. That's where nirvana, samadhi abide. Yeah. So, and that's where a lot of the, in understanding the extremes of life, in understanding the depths of suffering, as Buddha did, that's, you could say that's in some sense how he had a lot of love and compassion, and everything became of the arose from the Buddhist tradition, even though it was in the Vedic tradition prior to Buddhism, right? So there's much can be said about that, Michael. Much can be said about that. Craig, yes, eventually we need only ourselves for guidance. Many are addicted to advice and seeking and opinions of others. This is true, Craig. This is true. I said this in a lecture to people probably 8 years ago, and some of the people, most were cool, but some were like, But I said, like, you can't just continue to go from one meditation retreat to the next, 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 But in saying that, there's nothing. There's an innocence in that, and there's nothing wrong with that inherently. But I think a lot of people get addicted to the experiential feeling they get from it. Like a lot of people talk about the yoga buzz and stuff like this, and so they get addicted to the yoga buzz, and that's not going to advance your understanding of the nature of consciousness if you're just continually chasing a sensory experience, right? Terry, 70 and 80s is simply being in the now, awareness of the moment without holding on to it. Every experience is as it is. True. Terry, 70 and 80s, yes, Young Doctors. My mum would have watched that, and I'm sure I've seen that. Maybe it was on the ABC. Kimberly, you're a beautiful man. Thank you, Kimberly. You're a beautiful woman. Thank you, and very kind. Meredith, listening to I Am That for the third time, and the YouTube read by Samanari Jayasara is so well done. I don't know who that is, but that's awesome. Terry, love the I Am Meredith Hoffman. Yes. William Hibbets, we need your content more than ever. This world is going off the rails. Damn straight. Sometimes, like yesterday, some people, because like I said, they suffer from internetopathy. Let's just say I don't know if that's going to catch on, but internet confusion, that you put anything out and people get so confused about it, and they hate. A lot of Westerners really hate Eastern philosophy. I mean, I get a lot of hate. I get a lot of hate emails. I get a lot of hate in the comments, and I get a lot of people like being violent towards the community in the comment section. And I have zero tolerance for that. I mean, if you're going to do that and you're going to speak to strangers without any manners and not even conversing as an adult, then you're just going to be disbarred from the channel, because I've got to take care of the community. And I mean, this is why in the old days, especially in the East, a lot of, like, because of the East, we talk about a lot of the esoteric elements, the spiritual elements of Eastern philosophy and spirituality here, that it was kind of kept to people who had an aptitude for it. Now, as you know, YouTube is not a place where you can keep everything away from everyone, so you're going to get the odd person here and there. But I mean, I just don't understand how people can speak to strangers that way and just have a lack of common courtesy and no manners. If you're going to be on the spiritual path, manners and common courtesy is the first base. As a human, it's first base. That's how we've evolved as a species to have the world that we have, right? And I don't really understand that, but so William, don't worry, the content's going to continue full steam ahead. And I don't try to let negativity pull me down. Now, it's so easy to be positive, right? Like there's no reason for people to let negativity to pull you down. So, and a lot of people shouting online and this and that. It's kind of like I don't know if you guys know Bill Hicks, but Bill Hicks had a skit back in the early 90s when he would turn the TV on and he said, everything's like, everything, all craziness is happening. And then he said he'd open up the window and tweet, 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 just a bird tweeting, So he's like, where's all this shit happening? And well, if you focus too much on social media, especially, it's an absolute shit show. So I would say, try to refrain from that and watch the content that you want, if that's my channel or someone else's channel, and watch something that's positive and uplifting and doesn't, gravitate towards into drama, because most of the time you can walk outside and people aren't really like that, right? We're developing a very toxic psychology with the online world and with social media. And I'm concerned a little bit about what it's going to look like in 50 years, because people are going full steam ahead into it without even considering their actions. Yeah. And so we've seen people kill themselves from being canceled. I don't even know what that really means. You can't cancel a person like you cancel your internet subscription. And so, and so you've seen people commit suicide, and these people who spread their anger and their frustration on these people are not even held accountable. And so what I like one thing I like what's trying to happen in Australia is the government are trying to intervene with that, because too many people have committed suicide and this and that around the world. And the people who spread the hate and the violence and don't have manners and common courtesy get away with it scot-free. And so there has to be a bit of normality online, right? Like we are having a civil conversation here. How hard is it? How can we not do that in the comment section? And so don't worry. If anyone pulls any of that stuff on my channel, the sacredness of my channel is more important than trying to appease someone's political beliefs or what have you, so. Mike in the house. Mike, I thought you were going to miss it. Love all that you do for this community. Mike, thank you, brother. Love you. I don't know who saw who saw the actual, cause I didn't really promote this live stream. I just put it up, and who saw the live stream pop up in their feed? I mean, let me know if you did, because I don't know, Mike, you might not have saw it pop up in your feed. YouTube does funny things, right? So what can I say? Yes, look at these questions. Awesome. Awesome. Look at this. Michael, I found that all drugs are not necessary when it finally was realized by myself that it is just prolonged, where it would always eventually end up having to be patient naturally and earn on my own. This is true. I think it's a bit of a horses for courses, isn't it, Michael? Like some people, sometimes psychedelics can help people, and for other people, it may be problematic. But what we can say is Eastern spirituality and the meditative practices of Eastern spirituality are kind of universal for all, in the sense that we're not kind of ingesting anything, but we're investigating our experience and the nature of consciousness itself. So I like to say that most people in this room are like contemplative scientists. Yeah. So we're all like contemplative scientists, and the lab is our own consciousness, or our own psychosomatic organism, I should say. MK, you should be the next Dalai Lama. That would be funny. Michael McKinney. I will be honest, when the suffering of my spiritual essence and my heart due to heroin addiction for 20 years, off and on, caused a lot of earned wisdom upon returning back to my natural state. Yeah, sometimes that's life, isn't it, Michael? That's life. We can only look back in hindsight, right? We could say we would do a lot of things differently, but then it all ended up being a lesson learned. Sometimes you for yourself, obviously with an addiction to heroin, it was a long lesson. But you came out the other side, and like you said, you've learned a lot, gained a lot of wisdom from it. This is true. This is very true. All right, 1 second. So let's have a look here. Alan, thank you for the answer. Is there a specific branch school of Hindu Buddhists you think is most fast for Kundalini raising? I'm surprised we in the West don't talk more about Kundalini, honestly. It's so profound. I think it's actually spoke a lot about ad nauseam, a lot in the West, isn't it, Alan? Like, what's not spoke about a lot is, the actual real knowledge of the authentic traditions. If you're really interested in the Kundalini, you would have to explore more of the yogic traditions. And I mean, there are branches now of Kundalini yoga in India, right? Like, but they still are related to somewhat to like Kriya yoga and other forms of yoga. But if you go into Jnana yoga, then that's probably where your concerns for Kundalini awakening probably will dissolve, because again, it's experiential. I know that you seem like you're invested in that, but I don't know. Some people have different likes and dislikes, right? But it's not gonna give you liberation. That's the only thing. That would be my concern about you chasing wholeheartedly for Kundalini raising. And again, there's two different ways to look at Kundalini raising, right? Like, if you look at it from the traditional yogic perspective, sure, there is a dormant energy within the coccyx of the spine, right? That raises when we start to elevate our consciousness. But if you look at it in the yogic tradition, when we go through the chakras, right, it's a state of consciousness. So, like, for example, if someone had opened up their third eye, so to speak, then they perceive reality in a non-dual sense, and they're not a victim of their own projections anymore. So they may see them as a cloud, but they are not attached to them, and they do not act them out. They practice perfect vairagya, perfect renunciation, non-reactiveness to the activity of the mind. Now that's a raised Kundalini, and a lot of people don't talk about that. That's the traditional sense of the raised Kundalini. It got more associated with the experiential, explosion of the Kundalini, of all the energy later on. So if you want to really raise your consciousness and to be at that state of non-dual awareness, then that's a perfectly raised Kundalini, so to speak. Himu Singh Jain. Adoption of nature naturally, no need to describe with wearing certain dress and force to follow others to do that simplicity and be common. Well said, my friend. Again, simplicity and being ordinary is something people, again, they are so afraid of in this day and age, because we live in a world that is unfortunately highly influenced by Hollywood, right? It's influenced by the American dream of becoming someone, as if we all can be someone, whatever that means. Now, if you want to get into the deeper elements of being someone, then you have to unpack the psychology of self-esteem. You don't want to tell that to an actor or someone or someone who's going gung-ho at trying to gain attention on social media, because when you have a look at the science of self-esteem, the psychology of self-esteem, then there's a lot of self-esteem issues in people who are trying to gain attention. And so a lot can be said when your state of consciousness is just shanti and chill and okay with simplicity and okay being ordinary, and you find the simple things in life beautiful. So a lot can be said about that. Guyang and I actually have a podcast on why self-help is a problem. I forget what the title of the podcast is called, but we sort of unpack, that kind of spectrum. Terry, hey, I won that pool match with Gandhi. Lol. Got to go now. See you, Terry. Thank you for being here, my friend. Craig, will this be available for playback later? Got to get some sleep. When tired, I sleep. Lol. Craig, it'll be available on Patreon, my friend. So hope you can, if you want to become a member on Patreon, you'll get to see the replay of the live stream. I take the live streams down because, they are live streams, so it doesn't really make sense to keep them in the video library. So, but I know a lot of people really like to see, so. Lyle, I really like Yoga, the Science of Consciousness. So I don't know how many times I will have to listen to absorb it all, but I am looking forward to the next podcast on Yoga Sutras. Lyle, thank you. The next one will be up in a few weeks, my friend. So thank you so much. Guyang and I want to dive deeper into all of the great texts. And, we are not on, we want to stay honest with the material. We don't want the channel to turn into like other YouTube channels where people are doing things to gain followers and to, just to get the attention, because to do that, we would have to diminish the work. Most people are not interested in the deep work, right? So the reason why the audience is the size it is, even though I think it's a great size, is because only you guys are interested in the real deep stuff. A lot of people want to just listen to like a little 5-minute clip from another channel on, I don't know, so something feel good stuff, as opposed to diving deeper and exploring the nature of their existence. Meredith, have really appreciated both of you. Thank you, Meredith. There's Mike, North Carolina in the house, the best. James Short, I love your chocolate milkshake analogy with respect to yin and yang energy. As a man, how can I embrace yin in my relationships? Thank you, James. I'm glad you enjoyed that analogy. I think I used that analogy in Fasting the Mind. Yes, Fasting the Mind. First, I used that analogy in Fasting the Mind, I should say. As a man, how can I embrace yin in my relationships? You mean you embracing your yin, or embracing the yin in the relationship from the other individual? Maybe I'm overthinking that one. Embrace the yin in my relationships. Well, yeah, again, like as with anything, with more spiritual practice, you begin to blunt the sharpness, you begin to soften your glare, and, well, merge with dust. These are the words of the Tao Te Ching, right? So the more you practice sort of non-interference and sort of have this sense of vairagya, of like not reacting to a lot of things and this and that, you'll begin to harness more of the yin. But you gotta again practice a life of simplicity, and also not being out there going and being a go-getter a lot, right? So uh, a lot of the times, especially your name's James, so I'm assuming you're a man. A lot of men can be too sharp with their opinions, can be too sharp with their beliefs, and can be too judgmental at the same time. Not saying women can't, right? I'm not going to, but as men, we can do that, right? So that's where we need to, as Lao Tzu advises us, know the yang, but stick to the yin. So you have to have you have to almost, I know this sounds a bit dicky, but you have to practice humility, which sounds weird, right? Practicing humility sounds stupid. But like in a world that's so toxic with activity and opinions, time to put a break on that. Rein that tendency in, and then begin to listen to other people in your relationships. Yeah, listen without sort of imposing your version of reality onto them, if that makes sense for you, James. Empress Brianna, hello from Boston. Empress, thank you for being with us. Awesome. Steve, many yoga teachers are saying that yoga is a union of the Atman and Brahman, and at the same time, yoga is a dualistic system and aimed at separating the Prakriti and Purusha. How can that be? Steve, I don't know who told you that. First of all, Atman and Brahman are Vedantic terms. They should not be used in yogic philosophy. And I know we're getting technical here, but they shouldn't be used. And so whoever has shared that, and I know that when I've said things, I've tried to clarify if I'm relating Purusha to Brahman, then but we still have to frame it through the two different systems. One's, Vedanta is non-dual, yoga is dualistic. The reason why yoga is dualistic is exactly what you said. Prakriti is all the energy of the universe, the form, the matter, thoughts, everything. And Purusha, the pure awareness, the unstained awareness, the eternal awareness, is kind of separate. And the goal of yoga is to build that separation between the two. Yeah. So then you can then observe Prakriti without mingling your Purusha within the whirlpools of the world, right? The vrittis of the world, or more so the vrittis of your mind, the mental activity. So the confusion comes within, especially the Yoga Sutras, when we have a term, Steve. It's called Ishvara Pranidhana. Now, Ishvara Pranidhana means to kind of the love of Ishvara, right? But Patanjali didn't really explain, did he mean Shiva? Did he mean Vishnu? He kind of just meant like a love of the divine, so to speak. But he didn't kind of explain more about that. I would say if you want to understand more about that from a yogic tradition, probably read the Ishvara Gita, the Andrew Nicholson translation. Wonderful book. But whoever told you that, without giving you more context, they don't know what they're talking about. I mean, I don't know who they are, but they don't know what they're talking about, because Atman and Brahman are Vedantic terms, and he or she should have clarified what they meant. So, and again, yoga, a lot of people think that in Sanskrit, it just means like union with God, right? It means union with the Purusha, or the yoking process itself, yoking yourself out of the Prakriti to realize Purusha. John C., I read I Am That. It's phenomenal. It's a life changer. Excellent job. Meredith, you are never too young. I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that, Meredith. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, look at these questions. I love it. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. So good. Raul Maciel. Sorry if I mispronounced your name there, Raul. Is mindfulness meditation a form of doing self-inquiry that Bhagwan Maharishi proposed? I have doubts when reading the Nanya, and Ramana says the breath control exercises are secondary. Yeah, they're different. They're definitely different. There's look, you can practice, Raul, because we're splitting hairs here, and because I'm like you, I like to explore this and the deeper details of the traditions as well, and so you can add breath control as self-inquiry too, right? But it starts then to become too much to do to occupy for your awareness to be occupied with, right? So with meditation, with mindfulness, you can still practice mindfulness minus breath control, what they would call anapanasati, right? Awareness of respiration. You can practice it without that. I mean, because you can just like for example, Zen open awareness mindfulness is just having an awareness of the activity of the mind at all times. And obviously, as with self-inquiry, your mind may tend to wander depending on how far you are down the path. But that's how it can be similar, yeah. But the sort of the focal point is different, right? So if you look at self-inquiry, you're trying to isolate the I. If you look at it from mindfulness, minus the breath, the breathing exercises, and focusing on breath, and focusing just on the activity of mind, it's kind of different, right? You're just focusing on the activity of mind, and you're observing it, and you're watching. See, with that sort of Zen open awareness mindfulness, it's actually good to practice because you see thoughts and that they just evaporate like clouds in the sky. They're not permanent, even though some may be more intense than others that we have, right? Like, because you may have had probably an experience that evokes sort of an intense energy within yourself and within your mind. So Luther, I think of soul as the same as consciousness, which includes one's ego persona, right? If someone can blend or return back into God source consciousness, what happens to the identity of them? Well, the identity of them is gone, Luther. And because to merge with Brahman, or even the Tao, let's use the term, you have to dissolve the identity. Now, does that mean that you won't exist and function as a human being? Of course you will. It just means that the real identity is functioning now. Yeah. Not the one who has this belief, that belief. I'm like this. I have this dislike, that like. And it doesn't mean then that you just go off and you just, do whatever and you become an agori and you start eating feces and stuff like that. That's not what I mean. It means that you have downregulated your sense of self. It's no longer controlling your life. Yeah. And so the ego persona is an accumulative sense of self, Luther. It's an accumulative sense of self. And it's everything we accumulate through our life that is supposed to kind of, build this illusion of us, which actually makes us separate from the ultimate reality and separates us from everything else, right? It's all part of the ultimate reality, right? So I've had a good question, which I may answer on the Ask Jason episodes, which is about, like, this individual was saying that they see the emptiness in others, and because they see from the emptiness of themselves. But obviously, there's more to that question. But that's kind of the perspective that you somewhat need to get to, right? So, like for a sage, they see the Atman in all because they reside as the Atman. They abide in the Atman. They're not operating from a dualistic sense of mind. Yeah. So when you talk about source consciousness, you're talking about Brahman, right? That is non-dual. So there's neither this or that, and there's neither, because this or that only exists through your persona and your ego. And so when that's dissolved, there's only that. There's not this, there's only that. This, I am that Tattvamasi. So, and look, every path in the East is different to achieve that end, right? So Taoism has their way, Buddhism has their way, Hinduism has their way, and they're all legitimate paths. But there's a couple that are like, they hit the fast forward button, right? So there's the Dattatreya tradition in India, and I highly recommend going and reading the Avadutta Gita. And the Dattatreya tradition is like, wow, like mind-blowing. I've been around the tradition for about 12 years, and it is like, if you want to talk about dissolving the identity, I mean, it's pretty radical. It's pretty radical. But if you read the Avadutta Gita, you'll get an idea. But again, this is a Nidhyasana text. So it's a text that should be read in some sense after you've had non-dual sort of realization or enlightenment. But it can also evoke that. It can be dangerous if people don't really understand what's being said in those sorts of texts, right? And either fortunately or unfortunately for me, the Avadutta Gita, when I was younger, was one of the first texts I was actually enthralled about. Starfruit Juice Box. Good to have you with us. Canada in the house. Awesome. Guys, there's 52 in the room, only 54 thumbs up. Remember, give a thumbs up. Let's get it to 100 while we're on this live stream. Yeah, 100 thumbs up. I'd highly appreciate that. After watching your videos, you speak about Tao, Buddhism, yoga, and Hinduism. If you were to tell someone what you believe, what would you say? I've been asked a few times myself, and I'm uncertain how to answer. Starfruit, this is a good place where you're at, because beliefs are the problem. Yeah. And Eastern spirituality is beyond belief. We don't believe. Jnana is knowledge, is to know. We know through experience. Now, it gets difficult then with how to explain that to others, because we live in a world of belief, right? I was talking about identity with Luther just then, and in some sense, it's not the identity itself that's the problem. It's the belief in the identity. See, all of the beliefs in the world, they cause trouble, right? No matter whether they're religious or political or anything that's divisive, anything that's based on division is a belief. And so you've stepped into the path, as you said, of Tao, Buddhism, yoga, Hinduism, and this is going in beyond the belief, going into the realm of non-duality. So, it's difficult to answer, like you said, because you don't really believe, you know experientially, through the knowledge, because it hits right here. And so, I don't know. I don't know what to say and how to answer that. I believe in non-duality. I believe in the oneness of everything. I believe that separation is an illusion. Imagine saying that to someone. I believe that separation is an illusion. You don't exist. I don't exist. Imagine. They're calling the hospital straight away. Michael McKinney again. I have experienced a version of an awakening, I think 7 times roughly, and each time has been more eye and heart opening and dissolving of the ego. These were all caused by an end to extreme. Yes, it can happen. Like I said, Michael, it can happen. For others, it doesn't. Remember, I mentioned Ramana before. Ramana had an intense fear of death at 16, right? And that thrust him into awakening. You know, why? Who knows? You know, but I must say that I've met mainly people who haven't had awakened people who haven't had an intense experience who are awakened, especially in places like India. So maybe it's more vivid for someone who's gone through a terrible experience. But it's not horses for courses. You got to remember, we can't see, one thing I especially in the YouTube comments, is a lot of people have like an either or, sort of a Christian Western cognitive style of either or, and I get a lot of this from, and I'm saying you, Michael, but people, especially who are with political orientations, like, but what about this? What does Taoism say about this? Taoism doesn't say anything about it. So anyway, when you understand that there's like a carefree quality to Eastern philosophy, people get so annoyed. So, but I digress. I'm going off track there. But you don't want to think about it as either or, like you have to go through some sort of suffering to get a boon. It's not like that. It's people have different aptitudes for different things, and that's why people are good at certain things. And that's why, especially in the spiritual community, especially this community here, with all of us, is we're at a certain level as opposed to like people in the mundane world who have who are concerned about things of the frivolous nature, right? So Travis, very helpful, Jason. Thank you, Trav. Awesome. Glad I can help, my friend. I don't suppose there is a dictionary or encyclopedia or for specific terms, these Eastern terms, that you could recommend. Let me think about that. See, when you say that, I always think about the yoga tradition by Georg Fürsten, and because he has like a glossary of yogic terms. That book, again, it's a masterpiece. I mean, it's going to be definitely hard to beat, but that's only the glossary, but that takes up pages in his book of Sanskrit terms. I probably should do a video actually to clarify a lot of terms. I'm assuming a lot of people who have been watching my channel for a long time, they understand it. So forth and so on. I know sometimes I may forget, but I try to explain if I use a Sanskrit term or a Chinese term what I'm saying. But I'm human. Sometimes I forget. So Michael, suffering in spiritual bankruptcy, it now remains as it seems my own choice to be content with not being fully realized, and patience to keep letting myself be carried through the process so I don't feel it necessary to return to suffering. It seems like I chose to place myself back into suffering so I could eventually feel like I was awakened moment again to jumpstart my spiritual life again. Michael, you can't you can't try and evoke that. You know what I mean? You can't try and manufacture that. It has to be natural. In some sense, your suffering was natural, right? A natural part of your life that just happened, right? And I would say dive deeper into your practice and your study, and you seem like you're a very content individual. So I don't think that there's anything wrong there. But you don't also want to make spiritual realization a Hollywood film, right? Westerners tend to over sensationalize Eastern enlightenment and spirituality itself because, we have a Hollywood tendency, right? And so you don't want to over dramatize that, right? Because the contentment of contentment or nirvana is a very settled state of consciousness where you're not blown here or there by the wind. Yeah, it's very calm. That may not sound fantastic to a lot of people who have come here who have a new age inclination and they want to levitate and they want to be a fake guru and this and that. But that's not what we do here. We teach the proper traditions, and that's just what we do. Michael, thank you for the super chat. Michael, thank you. I appreciate it, my friend. Awesome. Everyone, don't forget to give a thumbs up. Yeah, give a thumbs up. Awesome. Look at this. What do we got? Alleyway to China. Have you studied Sufism? Yes, I have. Not for a long time though, Alleyway. Last time I studied Sufism properly, like where I gave it time, was probably 10 years ago. Michael, thank you very much. Yeah, awesome. You are helping heal the suffering we are now enduring in the ways of the world. Michael, thank you so much, my friend. Thank you for all the great questions too. I'm no longer addicted to experiences. That's awesome. Meredith, I'm not the Body by Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj is another book to read and meditate upon or listen and on Audible. It will transform your mind. Yes, thank you, Meredith. Obo, yes, sir. Thank you for feeling responsible enough to protect the community. Obo, thank you. Yes. It's important, yeah. It's important. So, Ryan, you saw it in your feed? That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Len, you did? Joe, you did? Awesome. Strata, this is good. So good, so good. Empress, I get a notification, but I saw it in my feed. Awesome. Music Dragon, it did pop up in my feed. Chris, I saw it notification. You're the best. Preston, saw it pop up. So good. So good. Miss N, I'm sorry you got hate messages. Tell yourself that Dogen and Buddha also received a lot of hatred from people who did not understand them or were afraid of what they did not know. We are with you. Thank you, Miss N. It means a lot. It means a lot. You guys, you don't have to see it, and I don't want you to see it, but like, I don't know. People have a lot of, people are just confused, yeah? And they're at different sort of times in their life, and I guess they feel a need to vent on someone, on a stranger and this and that. And it's more heightened now, obviously, than Dogen's time and the Buddha, but yeah, it can be interesting, But, it's not that it's missing. It's not that it's new, even before I did YouTube and that. I mean, I had someone who basically gave me a death threat back probably about 8 years ago for one of my books. And I just deleted the email, So I thought it was strange. And I've had people also on, be very vicious on the YouTube comment section, even on videos that are not mine, but on videos that I've had an interview where they were happy that my parents died when I was young because that's what I deserved, I don't know. Weird stuff. I mean, that's why we have, nut houses, I guess. Aaron with the super chat. Aaron, thank you, sir. You're the best. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised for all of you who get disheartened with social media. Because I've experienced a lot, I wouldn't be disheartened. I try not to be disheartened because those people are, they obviously are in a very dark place in their life and they're just projecting it onto you. And as I said, internetopathy is a thing. The confusion of people is a real thing on the internet. And I think it's been around since the dawn of the internet. People just get confused by what they see and they see things through their own lens. So, you know, when people say things about my parents and that hurts me a bit. But what can I do about those people? You know what I mean? Obviously, they have lots of problems, I guess. So, Art, I saw the live stream pop up on Twitter as well as YouTube. Awesome, you're the best. I saw you. I already knew you did that on Twitter, Art. Another super chat. Victoria, blessings. Thank you, Victoria. Awesome. You guys are the best. I'm just happy that you saw that pop up in the feed. I wasn't sure. Mike, you didn't see it in the feed. That's a bit strange. Sometimes that happens. I don't know. YouTube's got a funny system. They really do. Preston, how's your day? My day's great because I'm here with all you guys. Couldn't be better. Actually, I really look forward to this fortnightly live stream now. I don't know if you guys enjoy it, but I think it's just so cool just to hang out and to chat. And I think there's a lot of nonsense going on in the world these days. And I think a lot of people are too concerned about the C word. We won't even say it here. And Guy and I, we want to focus on not even mentioning any of that sort of stuff because, I mean, isn't everyone sick of it? You know what I mean? Like, it's exhausting for a lot of people, and that's what I want to keep the channel centered on what it's about. Luther, I saw him, I recommended, but for some reason it didn't give me a notification, even though that is weird. That is weird, Luther. Another super chat. Karen, thank you. You guys are awesome. Appreciate it. Obo, I went into a philosophy video yesterday, and then this live stream advert was there. I was a bit proactive. Awesome. Jay Mahakal. Thank you, my friend. Hari Hari Mahadev. Beautiful. How is India today? Hope it's doing good. Can't wait to get back. Stinging to get back to India. You have no idea. Michael, you don't have to keep reading mine. I didn't know you would, I guess. Michael. No need to apologize, Michael. Awesome. I try to read everyone, so I know I miss a few. But you guys are so good. Terry, I've not heard of you before, but a notice appeared. Glad I tuned in. Still here, by the way, but driving and may lose your stream. Thank you, Terry. Enjoy your day, my friend. Subprabhat. Music Dragon. Hi, Jason. Any insights on addiction? I meditate, study Asian philosophy, and am generally happy, grateful, and content, but still deal with some habits. Thank you. Thank you, and much love. Much love to you, Music. I always appreciate seeing you on the live stream. Addiction is a tough one to talk about, isn't it? Because it's you need more what type of addiction? Is it a chemical addiction? Is it a behavioral addiction? I'm assuming you're talking about a chemical addiction. It's funny because, chemical addictions and behavioral addictions, they stimulate similar parts of our mind, right? And it's it's something like because if I don't have any context, Music, it's difficult to talk about the addiction. But what I've noticed with people I've known with addiction is just that the longer the process of, you know, well, for yourself, you enjoy meditating, studying, of exploring your own nature, the more that those uh, those habits, those vasanas, they begin to thin out, so to speak. Um, Now, you can intensify that with spiritual practice, right? You can throw fuel onto the fire to try and burn those habits out, but it still may be a long term process because, especially with chemical addiction or even behavioral addiction, if it's been for long periods of time, you're kind of dealing with the body a little bit too, right? So then you've got this friction between the body's needs and your awareness, right? So it's very difficult for a lot of people who have had a massive chemical dependency to break that habit, and it just takes long time for some people. And I'm not sure if that's your case, but it might be. It may just require a lot more time, a lot more meditation, a lot more contemplation. And also, if you have a chance, putting yourself more in nature and also getting away from your familiar environments. Sometimes when you need to transform ingrained habits, if you get away from familiar environments that evoke certain habits, then it's good to put yourself in an environment where there's a chance to cultivate new habits. So there's nothing like transforming old habits with creating new habits, right? Even though, look, let's not beat around the bush. Some of those habits may still exist, but you're still not you're not giving them more oxygen to breathe, right? So those habits, you need to stifle of oxygen for them to die. Yeah. And it is possible. It is possible. And I know it's difficult at the moment to go to new environments and to submerge yourself in other cultures, but that time will come. James Short, super chat. Thank you, James. I've enjoyed your books the past year. Thanks. In meditation, I feel the divine within me and all things. Connection to nature, animals, and others is what my ego craves. There's nothing wrong with that, James. That's you don't want to overthink that, yeah. Nature, animals, especially, right? Like, we feel an intrinsic connection with them, and I wouldn't even say that that's really the ego, right? Like, that's a deeper sense of reality that you have, that you're connected, you feel connected to, right? We especially feel that with animals. We especially feel that when we go into nature. So I wouldn't make that some sort of analytical game that your ego craves that, so to speak. Because oftentimes when you're in nature, you do see what your ego craves. You go for a long walk in nature, and it's like, what are you doing? Let's just go back and watch a movie, go back and check Facebook, go and do these things, right? That's the ego. Yeah? The ego is addicted to stimulation. When you're patting a dog and you're hugging a dog, and you take a dog, or you play with a cat, or you go for a walk in nature, these are very simple activities that actually nourish our existence, because it reminds us of our connection to everything. And that may be from an egotistical perspective, but it's still a good understanding to have, rather than pretending to be spiritual and then you're at Wall Street and you're fighting guys and you're telling people this and that. Art, I find that there are some spiritual books I must read slowly in order to savor them. I happen to love reading, and I don't watch TV aside from YouTube. So I also read Japanese novels in tandem. Yeah, that's awesome. There's nothing wrong with reading novels in that. Yes, thank you, Jason. I notice other YouTube channels dumb down stuff and put lots of feel-good stuff without diving deep. I'm so thankful, and you put so much amazing content. Kudos to both Guy and you. Thank you, Art. Appreciate you, my friend. Obo, I've been using visualization technique at work with difficult people. I treat those sorts as if though they were a dark lightning ridden storm. They're Their words are as buffeting winds. It keeps them from shaking my rhythm. Please try it. Soften your glare. So good. Well done, Obo Obo. I'd like to read that book, I Am That. Who wrote that one again? Nisargadatta Maharaj. It's actually a transcription of Nisargadatta Maharaj. He didn't write it. Karen. Thank you, my friend. Softening the glare is a scary thing for a lot of people, isn't it, Obo Obo? Being soft, softening the glare, not having a stern opinion, and having a carefree attitude, right? Like you allow people to live as they want. Yeah, you see a lot in the world today. A lot of people talking about the V, and everyone's telling each other what to do. Just allow people to do what they want to do. Strange times, yeah, strange times. Everyone's became a dictator overnight. So once you soften your glare, then you just allow life to be as it will. Yeah, to be as it will. Travis, from the Yoga Sutra podcast, I understand that yoga is a dual philosophy. What I'm reading at the moment is non-dual philosophy. I plan to read the Yoga Sutra next. Is this contradiction a problem? No, it's not a problem, actually, Trav. The thing is, and I've explained this in a video. I've made that many videos. I can't even remember this video. It's probably a couple of years ago. It's about the non-dualism of yoga. Because what you got to think about is that, the philosophy and the framework of yoga is dualistic, right? Like what I said with Prakriti and Purusha. But it's the realization itself of Purusha, or abiding in the Purusha, some may argue is a non-dual. It is the non-dual experience. You're experiencing the world in its non-dual essence. But the way it's framed is dualistically, right, through yoga. So that's where there may be a contradiction. But I don't think that's going to confuse you at all, because you will kind of understand from reading non-dual philosophy, you'll probably understand the dualistic philosophy a lot better. For example, my original training was in non-dual philosophy, but then I got interested in yoga later after learning Vedanta. So I had an interest in yoga. And there's no surprises that if you look at the Vedanta Society, which came about by Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda, obviously, is a non-dualist, but he spoke at length about yoga and wrote about yoga and so forth and so on. Len, it's now 2:15 a.m. I really have to go to bed, but really enjoyed this. Len, thank you, my friend. Get a good rest, yeah? You don't need to stay up too long. Sleep is more important than listening to me gibber. So, Will Fitzgerald, evening, brother. I was watching you and the missus on podcast. Thank you. Forget which Tao topic, but suddenly it popped into my mind. Ego is the frog in the well. Did I reach an epiphany or repeat something I heard? No, you may have reached an epiphany. Frog in a well. Well, have you heard? I mean, I don't know. I think I may have heard that, but there's a lot of stories with a frog in Eastern philosophy, which is strange. There's the frog and the scorpion story. There's the koans that have to do with the frog. I think you may have came up with something here, Will. Obo, Terence McKenna, said something like he strongly believes in meditation, the cross-leg kind. He says sometimes he sometimes does it once every so many months. That's enough for him. Yeah, I guess horses for courses. Yeah, definitely horses for courses. Obo. It's Terence. He is a really interesting guy. Yeah, I love Terence. He was so good, so good. that may have been also, you know, he had a lot of psychedelic experiences, like tons, like, and so maybe for him it wasn't necessary. He was such a brilliant guy, right? Such an intelligent mind. I don't know him personally, but obviously, if that's what he said, then that was enough for him. But for most of us, we ordinarily need to make a kind of a routine with meditation, not in the sense that we're trying to gain something, but as I constantly always mention, as what Shunryu Suzuki mentioned to a lot of his students in San Francisco back in the 60s and 70s, was that, you know, we meditate because that's what Buddhists do. Yeah. So just like a cook cooks food, we meditate because that's what Buddhists do. So, and look, we all are Buddhas deep down, but that's what Buddhists do. We meditate just like we sleep when we're tired. You know, we meditate to observe the mind. Mike, again, thank you, brother. I pre-ordered your new book on Amazon. You're the best. Can you give us an update on the book? Well, which book are you talking about? Because actually this book is done and dusted. It's finished. I actually finished this book last year, and I wrote most of this book actually in 2018. But are you talking about the new book on Taoism? If you're talking about the new book on Taoism, which I assume you're talking about, I just finished the 4th chapter yesterday. So my plan was I want to finish this chapter before I do this live stream on Thursday here in Australia, Wednesday night for most of you. And so I really wanted to finish that chapter, and it's going good. It's going good. I'm diving a lot deeper into the 4th chapter, and there's a lot to go. I would say that I'm halfway through, but I don't know. This may be the longest book I've ever written, Mike. But I'm taking my time with it. Yeah, I'm not in a rush. My plan is, I hope once I finish it, it can move into the publication process fairly quickly. You know, maybe with the US publisher, hopefully, and then it can be published in 2023. I mean, publishing takes so long these days. There's too many people writing books. So, all right, let's go back up and have a look at the other ones. Michael, you're asking about the Avadutta Gita. Art Avadutta Gita, Da Gita. Here, like, all right. I type to you. Yeah. There you go. You can see Avadutta Gita, and that's from Avadutta Gita is based on the Dattatreya tradition. So, I've wanted to do more content on the Dattatreya tradition and Avadutta Gita. It's all about timing. Yeah, it's all about, you know, especially when I'm writing a book. It's obviously, like, the video content and this and that I lose track of, like, so it can be difficult. Obo, thank you for your kind words. You're so articulate. I bet you are too, my friend. Michael, stop reading my messages. I'm going to keep reading them. Carly. Okay, I thought we were all here for the commonality of the desire to learn more, not to be internet trolls. Me too, my friend. Me too. But, you know, some people, they can't help it, I guess. Michael, that's how I receive the trolling or hate-based thinking, mass confusion and ignorance or closed-mindedness to ideas and ways when having to explore unknown territory is required. This is an interesting thing, Michael, with the clash of cultures, right? Like, say, like naturally when different cultures came across each other, there was, sort of an ebb and flow, right? There's trying to understand this and that, especially when Westerners and Easterners, were mingling with each other a little bit more as we evolved. And then you throw the internet into this, and people who have not heard of anything, and then they just come across something instantly, then they just assume from their perspective, their cultural training, that this other way of life is crazy, right? And some Westerners get so annoyed with me because when I explain to them that there's not one universal way of thinking, and that's been proven in cognitive science through extensive studies, especially with Easterners and Westerners, that, and this is based on environmental circumstances through our evolution, based on the geographical location of the world we're from, which has informed our philosophies and religions going forward, right? But there's a lot of Westerners online who get angry when I say that, even though the data is there. But they they want to believe that everywhere is Western. And political scientist, actually, Francis Fukuyama, he wrote a book about this, about how this idea that Western thinking thinks everywhere is Western, deep down are Western. And he said, to be frank, American philosophers think everywhere in the world is deep down American. And so interesting, right? Interesting how, especially a lot of American political commentators and scholars and even religious scholars in the States and this and that will frame it through an American lens and take out the historical and cognitive style of the East. I mean, for myself, it's frustrating, but it's something that a lot of people who are sincere about Eastern spirituality have to live with, unfortunately, for the moment. So some of the comments I get on YouTube and this and that, I often wonder that I get worried about the future of Eastern philosophy and spirituality and Eastern culture in general, because people just undermine it. They, and they use, the whole political thing where like we should be moral and this and that. They use all of this sort of rant to solidify their point, which again is a Christian cognitive style, which they don't understand. And there's a lot of scholars actually in India who talk about this, and it's called coloniality, colonial consciousness. And a lot of people in the West are just so absorbed in colonial consciousness. And part of colonial consciousness is is imperialism, but it's kind of become more covert where it's intellectual imperialism, if that makes sense. That would make sense to the Indian audience who are watching this, because they've constantly, especially in recent times, have been under the tyranny of intellectual imperialism coming from the West. Daniel Raymond. Hello, my very good friend. Thank you, brother. Great to see you, Dan. Always good to see long-time subscribers. Last pillar, don't you think Kali Yuga is progressing too fast? That's a difficult question to answer, last pillar. It depends on, well, again, that depends on your perspective. For some people around the world, it's probably not progressing fast, but it appears to be progressing fast. When we see the common consciousness or the mundane consciousness of the world. Preston, what were some of your favorite places to visit when wanting to deepen your view of your practice? Is there anything I can do at home that can allow myself to dive deeper? Preston, what's very important, and I speak about this actually in Emotional Intuition for Peak Performance, is consecrating your home. Now, what I mean by that is, turning your home basically into a temple. So basically, Guy Young our apartment here is basically almost like a temple. So, and that kind of keeps your mind in that field of consciousness, that state of consciousness. Yeah. So, definitely make sure you consecrate your home, because at the moment, we are kind of limited to what our movements in the world, what we can do. And so I would say make sure you do that. And that may mean, getting a picture of Ramana Maharshi, getting, a sculpture of the Buddha, or Lao Tzu riding an ox, or, Ganesha, Shiva. I have two shawls here, the eight symbols of Tibetan Buddhism, anything, like, just to keep your sort of like your home should be your temple, right? Should be your sanctuary, not just because you sleep there and you live there, but because it's probably the place where you can contemplate the most, as opposed to like, walking out in the street and this and that. But some of my favorite places to visit, and I think I've mentioned to you before, Tiruvannamalai, Bodh Gaya, they're two of my favorites. But I would add to that Kathmandu, and the Kathmandu, and when I say Kathmandu, I mean the Kathmandu Valley in Nepal, and I would also say Pokhara in Nepal too. But with Pokhara is so chill. Like you can just, like, Guyang and I have went there like with the intention sometimes, we'll just spend a couple of weeks in Pokhara, yeah. And then next minute, 3-4 months later, we're like, wow, where'd the time go? So, like, because Pokhara because Pokhara is built around Fiwa Lake, which is a sacred lake, and there's a good energy there, and the people are really, for those who know Nepalis are so chill, but like the energy in Pokhara is so good, but it's really like shanti. So you can, Guyang and I would stay on this really cheap guest house right on Fiwa Lake. And often we'd just spend most of our days just looking out at the lake and just maybe read a book and chat. And then next minute it's lunchtime, and then we go for lunch, and then we come back and we do the same thing in the afternoon and go for dinner. So life is very simple, and you can get absorbed in that. But Kathmandu Valley, like what I really like about Kathmandu Valley, there's so much history there with Hinduism and Buddhism. You can just go from like a Buddhist temple or a stupa to then like a Pashuputanath, right? Pashuputanath is very sacred for Shiva worshippers, and and in saying that, like if we look over in Thailand, I'd say also places like Chiang Dao is one of my favorite places in Thailand. Chiang Dao, not Chiang Mai or Chiang Rai, but Chiang Dao is a really good place for meditation. There's actually a really great monastery there that I've been to, and I really love that place because it's so quiet. And there's a lot of cases actually on the tour, and a lot of you will be happy about this. Mike, I know you'll be happy about this. Is I was doing the artwork for the Thailand tour next year, and I was thinking of the places that we should go to, and Chiang Dao was high on the list. Some people don't like Chiang Dao because when you go to Chiang Dao, you're kind of like in real Thailand. Like the town is like real Thailand, right? And so, but then just outside of town, there's like there's a fantastic cave where hermits have been living for forever, and then there's a beautiful temples and a wonderful monastery up on the mountain. And so I just envision myself walking with all of you guys up the mountain, going to this monastery and spending the morning meditating, and then I know a really amazing restaurant actually down the mountain where the Thai food is just to die for. And so Guyang and I, we love going to Chiang Dao because it's so quiet, and for whatever reason, every time we go there, it's pissing down rain, but that doesn't dampen our mood. So those places, Preston, those places for sure. So I probably missed out a few, but Tobin/Cameron, it must be difficult running a YouTube channel, many hassles, I'm sure, but we are glad that you do it. Did you begin as an author? Thank you for sharing all the positivity. A tonic for our times. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you. It can be difficult running a YouTube channel, especially when you do it on your own. And basically the only help these days I get from Guyang, because she's busy doing her own thing, is with the podcast. So that was a little bit different than when we were living in Thailand, where she could give me more of a hand. So it can be difficult running on your own because, just, the management of it. But yes, I did begin as an author. So I didn't really take on YouTube seriously until probably 2016. And even then I was a little bit reluctant, Cameron, to take on YouTube because, in general, I live ordinarily a really quiet life. Yeah. So I was, at that time in my life, I was very content with just being an author and writing articles and managing my own website and taking people on tours. That's what actually gave me a lot of joy. Not that the YouTube channel doesn't give me joy, but I started the YouTube channel because I just thought, Guyang and I would sit around all the time and think that we want to share because there's so much misinformation on YouTube. We want to share the deeper knowledge. So, and actually the podcast spawned, and I've told you guys before, 2014, 15, when we were living in Tiruvannamalai, we would often go, and after going to the ashram in the morning, we would go to one of our favorite tea shops in Tiruvannamalai. And a friend would sometimes come and see us, and we'd have a, talk in the morning and whatnot. And he said, man, you two should be doing like your own sort of conversational format. And so Guyang and I would jokingly say, like tea satsang or something like this. And so that's kind of like, stretch it out 5 years later, we start the podcast, right? Usually it takes us a little bit of time to get to something for it to kind of gestate and give birth. So, but I was an author before, and I was mainly doing lectures and this and that. Actually, because I've lived kind of mainly a recluse life as an author, I didn't really know a lot about the power of YouTube. I had YouTube videos out all the way back in 2011, but I'd just throw one video out for like the whole year, and I just didn't know enough about it. And so I was still doing, in-person lectures up until 2016. So, and then people were saying, "Why are you spending all your money on doing in-person lectures for on this and that? Then you can you do it on YouTube for free, and it doesn't, you don't have to pay for plane tickets and go to America or Europe or what have you." So, Jay Lewis, I love your vlogs. Thank you, my friend. I learned to keep peaceful online buying your books. You're the best, my friend. Thank you. The Frog in the Well, was it a Jongsa story? Will, I can't. Maybe I've got a blind spot at the moment. But you might be right. John C., I guess why I'm so attached to the Tao is that for 18 years I've lived with nature right outside my front door. Nature had become my teacher and church. Do you think that that's even possible in the city? It is possible in the city, John, but it can make it a bit difficult. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Lao Tzu, in some sense, there's one chapter in the Tao Te Ching where he mentions, even when I've spoke about this with people who study it in Chinese, it's almost like he's also advising us to be closer to the sort of the natural world, because we actually are part of the natural world, but we often forget it because of the socialization process that we all go through, right? So then our life is dictated to by the socialization process, not by the way nature is. So I don't see that anything that you're doing anything wrong there, John. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with being, so to speak, attached to the Tao, because everything is the Tao, right? I mean, unless you've got some sort of urge to go back to the city, I'm not really sure, but it is possible in the city. It just can be a little bit more difficult, especially if you're a very social person. If you're a social person and you're interacting with a lot of people all the time, that can be a problem. And the reason for that is because it's not actually natural for us to be in communication with so many people, because that's not how we sort of evolved. That again is the product of socialization. Is there anything inherently wrong with that? No, but it can impede your spiritual practice or your sort of your evolution. Jay Lewis, new reader, which should I start with on Taoism? I would say like a good start with Taoism, get yourself a copy of the Tao Te Ching, get the Jia Fu Feng and Jane English translation. Even go and grab yourself a copy of Tao, the Watercourse Way by Alan Watts. I still love that book. I really love that book. Alan just had such a beautiful way with words, and he had a mind that I don't think it's hard for a lot of people to replicate. Also, I would say read my book, Effortless Living. Shameless plug, but I think Effortless Living would help you a lot, Jay. Travis, you do a great job explaining all Eastern terms. You talk about, however, a vocabulary lesson video on all philosophies you talk about compiled would be amazing. All right, Trav. It's in the data bank, my friend. What do we got here? Luther's explaining the frog in the well. There you go. Yes, Chinese idiom. Yeah, I don't know if it was in the Zhuangzi. I don't think it was in the Zhuangzi. But thank you for that. Thank you for that, Luther. Yeah, the frog becomes embarrassed when he realizes he's been living in such a small, sheltered world. This is true. So true. And that's what happens with our identity, Luther, like with your original question. When we live within the walls of our identity and we don't know what's outside of those walls, we live in a very sheltered world and a very narrow world, yeah. And that's why we try to protect that world, yeah. We start to protect that world when you've got to kind of break free of that hypnosis, yeah. Music Dragon, thank you, Music Dragon. It was helpful. That's good. It's such a difficult addiction's so difficult, yeah, to answer a lot of the time, especially if you don't know the context and the circumstances. Guys, there's 44 in the room, 69 thumbs up. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. I'd appreciate that. Hope you're all enjoying the chat. Victoria Torabito, sorry, Victoria, I'm mispronouncing your name. Do you believe in the concept of manifestation? I've noticed such a huge push thanks to the boom of New Age spirituality, especially TikTok. Oh no, is there New Age spirituality on TikTok? That'll be the end of it. For this as a ideal way of navigating life. Manifestation. What do you mean by manifestation here? You mean like such a Sai Baba manifestation where he could just, well, he didn't really. It was well, a lot of people still believe he could manifest things, but he was exposed for not being able to manifest things. Are you talking about manifest things in your life, like through like the law of attraction and I don't know, new agey concepts like this? I didn't know there was a boom of new age spirituality on TikTok. Oh no. Someone once said to me, TikTok is a place where you'll see the worst of humanity. I've never been on it, so I don't know. So where nothing is sacred. I've heard that, but yeah, I might be wrong. I don't know what the platform's really about. I know it's a short video platform. But I don't quite get those short platforms because, I mean, that's training our attention span to just be like, I don't know how long the TikTok videos are, but it's training our attention span to be so small, which is frightening for the future, especially of our youth. Sue, asanas were developed to quiet the mind for meditation, but do you think other physical movements can serve the same purpose? Sue, yeah, they can. They can. I mean, you can go to the gym, right? And you can serve the same purpose as, like, if you are, like, for example, if you're a long distance runner, right? Anyone who's done long distance running, I've done long distance running as well, will know that there's a sort of a meditative state of consciousness after a certain limit your body has been pushed to, right? So same with yoga asanas. You're kind of putting your body in postures that you stereotypically wouldn't put them in, right? But that serves a higher purpose for your cultivation of awareness. But in saying that, you don't want to then make out that the physical movements and this and that is the be all and end all of cultivating or training your awareness, because there's a lot of traditions who don't do that, right? So the original asana actually in the Yoga Sutras is the sitting posture. Patanjali is talking about sitting posture. He doesn't talk about, he only briefly mentions asana in the Yoga Sutras, but asana means to sit or seat, which then you can translate into posture in a certain way. So, but to answer your question, of course, they can serve a purpose for sure. There's no doubt. I mean, being physically active is a lot better than sitting around and vegging out and watching YouTube all day. There's no doubt about that, right? So it's all about balance, Sue, as you surely know. You do say that you feel connected to the oneness of life through dance. Yeah, dance has been a big thing within. There's a lot of dancing cultures within Hinduism. There's the Sufi practice of dance, and yes, you can be connected through dance. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. But you don't want to also extrapolate that. Yeah, you don't want to make that more than what it is. So, as we see with some people who are gym junkies, they kind of make out like it's their meditation, but then when they're out of the gym, their behavior doesn't really reflect that. It all depends on how your behavior is reflected outside of off the meditation cushion, out of the dance studio, so forth and so on. Obo, does your book Effortless Living elaborate on the soften your glare concept? If not, which one do you have that does? Please, my MasterCard is at the red. Obo, you're so good. Yeah, Effortless Living. Go. Yep, definitely, my friend. Definitely. Also fasting the mind. As well. Deepak Gurung, where are you currently speaking from? Speaking from Brisbane, Australia, my friend. Where are you currently living, Deepak? Let me know. Guy, I've mentioned to you guys many times, Guy and I have been attempting to go back to Asia, but it's very difficult. And so we're stuck here for a little minute in Brisbane. So, but my mindset is that, and I guess that all of you, everyone else in here, mindset is that, I'm going forward with my life regardless of what someone says or what some media network says. My direction is forward, and that's why I enjoy doing all this with you guys. Dazzling Chick, thank you for trying to answer a difficult question on your last Q&A. Just wanted to thank you again. I know that I will be guided to the right person and they will be guided to me. No worries, Dazzling. Thank you, my friend. Travis, love it. Thank you, Trav. Thank you for the super chat. Pantano Productions. I loved your movie, The Art of Effortless Living. Changed my life over the past year. I listened to it many times over. I have also recommended. Just wanted to say thank you. I am forever grateful. Thank you, my friend. Excellent job. Victoria, like manifesting your life, dream, partner, job, etc. TikTok is the toilet bowl of humanity. I like to say, lol, I'm not on it, but I have younger brothers who will make references and show me things. And man, oh man, very toxic misinformation platform. I betcha, Victoria. Manifesting is a difficult thing. See, New Age sort of those ideas of manifestation, New Age manifestations, they don't sort of coincide with proper Eastern spirituality, right? Because when you're talking about manifesting the right partner or right job or your dream and this and that, you're still in the field of the ego, right? So that it's kind of counterintuitive when we come to Eastern spirituality. If I'm sitting all around all day, like thinking like, I want to win the lottery, like it's only my ego that wants to win the lottery, right? What's it got to do with my actual realization of the self, or so it's got nothing to do with that, right? Yeah, okay, I win the lottery, I've got a lot more money to use. I'll probably give most of it away. So it's all based on the ego, and obviously, as you said, because TikTok is the toilet bowl of humanity, it is also based on the ego, right? That platform itself is based on the ego. It's based on attention. It's based on, like you said, it doesn't matter what information they put on TikTok. It can be the most grotesque or stupid bit of misinformation you've ever seen, but it will be allowed to be on the platform because that's just what the platform's for. And people are just saying anything to get attention. And that's a dangerous game that humanity are playing to do that. Yeah. So Michael, all I have experienced through others' experiences is that TikTok is exactly that which is unsacred or unauthentic. Yeah. Okay, what do we got here? Arvin, Malaysia in the house. How are you, brother? Jason, I've noticed a bit of difference between the yoga schools and the Advaita schools regarding free will. The Yoga Vasishta claims that fatalism is dangerous and that self-effort is important. But in Advaita, they claim that everything is the will of God, and they tend to hold back on effort, work, etc., because there is no doer. How do we reconcile the two? Yes, that's a deep question, Arvind. Thank you for that one. Now, there was a video I created on that, and I don't know if I answered this within the video on Advaita Vedanta I did many years ago, or the video on karma. It was one of the two. But anyway, so yes, it's such a difficult question to answer, Arvind. The thing is that I kind of mentioned this earlier before, where someone came through with a super chat. Partano, thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. Someone mentioned before about the effort. Oh, Miss Zen, I think, mentioned the effort required to practice self-inquiry. Now, and I mentioned different aptitudes, Arvind, like, obviously Ramana had a deep aptitude for spirituality. So to realize the self for him was just like going for a walk. But for you and I, it might be like going for a marathon, right? So both perspectives in some sense are right? Like the Yoga Vasishtha is not wrong in saying that some effort is required. But I think that the key here is that though we, like, say if we don't have an aptitude for the realization like Ramana had, then some effort is required until the point that we realize that it wasn't actually our will in the first place. Like we realize then that it wasn't really. See, it's difficult to say, right? Like, because when you nut it down, because like especially from a Vedantic perspective, like everything is the will of Shiva. Everything you do is not of your doing because the doer does not exist. The ego is a temporary accumulative sort of inflection of reality. It's not a permanent state. Now, in saying that, however, then the ego can serve us in a sense to begin our spiritual practice and to put the effort in that's necessary. Now, the Vedantists may argue then that it was the effort and the will behind that was actually still the divine will, even though from a subjective perspective, you saw it this way. And so it's such a multi-nuanced question, this one, Ben. There are differences definitely between the yoga schools and Advaita schools. And again, that goes back to being dualist versus non-dualist. So the non-dual school of Advaita, obviously, because of the dissolution of the free will, would mean that everything is happening according to one's own prarabdha karma. So one's own personal predestined karma. And all that actually exists is the self, is the Brahman. So, and from a Vedantic perspective, that is true. But then when we look at the dualistic schools of yoga, what is required because of the state of dualism is a state of effort and a state of practice. So you have abhyasa and vairagya, which are the two core concepts of yogic practice, right? So the effort and the effort is the practice, right? Is the abhyasa. And then you have the vairagya, which is the renunciation or the non-reactiveness that kind of has to become your default mode in life. And the irony here in yogic practice is the more you practice vairagya, the more you realize that the free will that you believe you had is not really what's in control of your existence. Yeah. But it could only be realized through abhyasa, through practice, which sounds really weird, right? Which sounds weird. But the Yoga Vasishthas claim that it can be dangerous, like can be fatalistic. It is that can be true if one is not schooled well enough in the tradition, right? So, and I've seen this. And I know of unfortunate circumstances where someone has came across Advaita Vedanta and they've taken it the wrong way. Yeah. And there's been an unfortunate circumstance, an unfortunate event would happen at the end of that person's life. And so, and that's again, not being schooled enough. Yeah. So that's why on this channel and, through my books, I try to, harp on about the importance of study and not just taking these traditions lightly, or in Victoria's, like what Victoria said, not just listening to a silly TikTok and thinking you understand the tradition. There's a lot more to go into, because even answering your question on free will is very difficult to answer without like a massive satsang to explore the situation. But if we explore it from both schools, we have the dualistic and the non-dualistic perspectives. So then from a dualistic perspective, there's still a seeking. From a non-dualistic perspective, the search is over, right? So you are like my book Enlightenment Now, right? This idea of we are all enlightened, but it's kind of this perspective of that we live in this time-bound reality that eclipses this non-linear, non-dual nature that is at the base of our being, which is not determined by your free will. It exists. It's there, right? So the Vedanta would explain that sort of concept of personal will through the idea of prarabdha karma, predestined personal karma. So even your choices is part of your predestined personal karma. So. And this also relates to Jimmy Lenny's question, Arvind. So sort of. Jimmy Lenny says, I've heard stories of people hurting themselves or by pushing themselves too hard in spiritual practices, kundalini madness, etc. That's for sure. Is this true? And how do you know when to slow down? You have to have a sensitivity to your own psychosomatic organism, Jimmy. If it's too much, then you need to pull the brakes on, You pull the brakes on. For example, I don't actually recommend a lot of kundalini practices. And, I have my own reasons why. But say for that, also other meditative practices, I would say you have to just follow your gut and be a bit sensitive about it, yeah? Like, for example, I've been doing a lot of work recently, a lot of writing and a lot of meditating and obviously creating YouTube content. And I can feel I know it's time to take a week off, right? Even though you could say, there's more to do, right? You can write next chapter, you can do this and that, you can do, but you have to be sensible and know when the time is right. Look, it's funny that if you're in a monastery, for example, and you say, if you go, I'm going to the monastery for a month, you never really feel like you need to slow down with your practice and that. But when you're practicing at home, because of the stresses of daily life and the stresses of whatever stresses you have in your life, there's a tension between like your practice and your obligations. And that's always been a problem for everyone, actually, in their spiritual life. I even know monks in monasteries who still get stressed because they have to run the monastery, right? I mean, they're much more shanti than probably you and I, but they still have an element of stress and obligation to other people and to the monastery itself. So you have to, once you feel that anxiety and that stress kind of in the background and it's there and it doesn't go away, that's when it's time to put the brakes on. And I know a lot of people will say to me, but Jason, I live with that anxiety in the background because of social media and this and that. Well, then you have to reevaluate your relationship with those things, because you should not be living with constant anxiety and stress in the background. That's really silly. And a lot of people continue to live like that, and then they burn out and they have all sorts of psychological problems, in the future, which is, we need healthy and sane people, yeah? Lyle, I love learning at this level. It is also a meditation of sorts to listen to the podcast. Thank you. Lyle, thank you. Appreciate you, my friend. John C., do you think Taoism, Hinduism, and Buddhism lead to the same place? Yes, because they all have an undifferentiated view of the ultimate reality and consciousness, framed differently through different philosophies. And a lot of people get mad when I say that, but they do, because when you look at even the philosophy behind Dharmakaya, Tao, Brahman, it's languaging a undifferentiated state of consciousness, a non-dual state. And so that's why, John, a lot of people will equate Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism with being not just the Eastern paths, but the non-dual paths. But in saying that, like what Arvind was mentioning, there are dualistic paths within, especially within Buddhism and Hinduism. But they're still leading to some sort of undifferentiated state of consciousness. Daniel, do you integrate Chinese five elements into your life, my friend, i.e., their creative and destructive essence? Thanks. Yes, I do, Dan. Not a lot though. Not overly recently. I would say maybe 4 years ago. Yes, but not this. And I don't really know why. I think the five elements theory just has not been a focus of mine for a long time. Not for a long time. But I still enjoy studying five elements theory in Taoism. And yeah, I don't know why, Dan. Is it a big part of your life? Because for myself it has, and I think mainly for myself because I've been so absorbed in my spiritual practice and running this YouTube channel, writing books, that it's almost like anything else to follow becomes like a bit of a stress, maybe, you know. But anyway, let me know if you follow the five elements theory, Dan. And I think you do. I think you do integrate it into your life. There was a time, like about 5 years ago, I was integrating like five elements, feng shui. I was following Ayurveda and Chinese medicine in tandem. It just became too much. I needed to find some sort of balance and sanity within all of that. Cesar Joseph Abalada, how are you, Cesar? Thoughts on Christianity? I've explained Christianity a lot in previous live streams, and as probably everyone knows, Christianity it's kind of a diametrically opposed religion and philosophy to Eastern spirituality, because the philosophies are different. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that, but it means that when we explore the nature of consciousness, Christianity is in some sense, not a sufficient tool, because it's based on doctrine, it's based on and also doctrinal privilege. So based on the idea that Jesus is the Son of God, and Jesus is the only way, and it's not very tolerant of other spiritual traditions because it's built on an interventionalist perspective. And so Eastern philosophy is not built on interventionalist means. And so that's why, you know, those philosophies don't have conversion and so forth and so on. So, I mean, I've explained that a lot, and it's probably a bore for everyone else who's new, who's old around here. Nano Gelidas. Welcome, Nano. Thank you. Hey, Jason, I discovered your channel a few days ago, listened to a few of your videos, and instantly I got hooked. I'm planning to read your books. Any suggestion about the order in which I should read them? No particular order, Nano. I would say read. First, I would say probably read. Oh, it's hard to say. I would say read it. Let's say Enlightenment Now, Effortless Living, Fasting the Mind. Those three first, yeah, and then maybe get on to Science and Practice of Humility and Emotional Intuition. But no particular order. I mean, sometimes I say always Enlightenment Now for people, or Effortless Living, but then I say, oh, but Fasting the Mind is, you know, it's difficult. Paterno Productions. Also, Jason, would love to hear your take on numerology. I don't know enough about numerology. I used to, because I used to study the tarot and the Kabbalah, or the Kabbalah, however you want to say it. And also, so in studying those two, you have to, well, you don't have to, but studying numerology is part and parcel. But it's been that long. That's probably 12 years ago. And I don't really have anything to say about it. What is interesting is Vedic maths and stuff like that. I've been interested in Vedic maths, but I've never really delved into that because I've just been more so focused on philosophy and spirituality. Arvin, thank you. Much appreciated. We need a thorn to remove a thorn from living dualistically, moving into non-dualism. I think you mean Arvind, yeah. But I hope Arvind, that sort of, I would say, I don't know if you've watched my video on Advaita Vedanta, but I speak about free will in that video. And I think that you'll get a lot out of that. It's only about a 20-minute video too. It's not like a podcast. And that's from a few years ago. It's an older video. So, Obo, would you consider an interview with Russell Brand's show? I would if he wanted me on. I don't know if he knows who I am. So I don't know if I don't know a lot about Russell, but I don't know if he's into, I might be wrong here, but like traditional Eastern knowledge. I don't know enough about him. Mike, I'm excited about seeing the Changdao Cave in northern Thailand. Yes, Mike, we're doing it. We're doing it. I was doing the artwork yesterday. Like I said, I was doing the artwork for Thailand 2022 tour, Northern Thailand 2022 tour. And then I was going to start making the artwork for Nepal 2022 tour. And I thought, I better ease up. I better just do one and see if there's any traction. So what I will do with that is I will, I'll create a page on my website, and I will have a sign up list. It doesn't mean that you have no obligation, but it means that you have an interest in coming to the tour. So I'll have all the prices and everything on that for everyone. And then, you can write to me and sign up with your interest. So when the time comes around where I can actually get a date, then I can send you an email with the details, so to speak. So I don't know if any of you are excited about that, about going to Thailand or Nepal. I know if I ask it all the time. So, and I know that a lot of you are excited about going to Nepal or Thailand or Nepal or India. John, thank you for being with us, John. Excellent. Now, any more questions, guys? Or is that it for the day? Pump through your questions. Let me know what's going on. Let's have a look up here if I missed any. Daniel Stewart, I missed your question. Jason, when you meditate deep enough, do you feel a sense of your Jiva ego thinned away into Brahman, Tao, or Shunyata? Yes, I do, Dan. But to be honest, not all the time, obviously. It depends on the turbulence of the mind, of the vrittis, yeah? So when say if I'm on sadhana and that's it. Like I'm not, no YouTube, no internet, no writing. I just push all of this away. Then it's so easy to have that sense, that to abide in that, in meditation, and also to actually feel it more in everyday life. The vrittis can be strong for anyone in society, right? Or anyone who's engaged online. I've mentioned before on the live stream, like some people say, oh, people in the countryside must be so peaceful. And it's like, well, they can be, but when you are constantly online, you're basically bringing the world into your house anyway, right? So that can cause a lot of dramas. So I've always mentioned to people that if they want to go deep into their practice, it's important to go on long-term retreats and to give yourself that time. Yeah. Some people, and a lot of people think I'm mad, but when they say they want to dive deep, and then when I say to them, when I prescribe them with 4 months in Tiruvannamalai, they look at me like, I can't do that. It's like, well, how willing are you? What's the effort? What effort are you going to put into this? Yeah. And I know a lot of us have obligations and this and that, and we can't just take 4 months off sometimes, but we can put ourselves in a situation where we can, right? Where we can dedicate our time and effort to long-term retreats. And I wish I could actually create a long-term retreat for people, but I don't know how much time people can actually have off to live that sort of life. A month would be good, but I don't know if a lot of people have time for a month, right? So. Patano Productions, what is your favorite food or type of food to eat? Indian food. I'm addicted with Indian food, and I have been since the day I moved to India when I was young, when I was living there. And a lot of people say to me, well, that's probably not a healthy choice, some people say, but it's a food. There's something about Indian food. I don't know if it's all the spices and that. I know there's a lot of turmeric and everything like this, but like I know a lot of people probably don't know any of this. Dal makhani. I love dal makhani, paneer butter masala. Dosas. I love having a dosa in the morning for breakfast. My dream. This is like a dream day for me, right? So Gang and I wake up early. We lived in this place in Tiruvannamalai where a lot of you may not know this, but in Tiruvannamalai, you can walk on the roof. They build the roofs made of concrete, and so they have stairs where you walk up there, and so you can hang your washing on top of your roof or whatever. But we would have a direct view of Arunachala, right? So we would wake up early in the morning as the sun's rising, meditating. Maybe practice a little bit of qigong or tai chi, or hatha yoga, and wake up with Arunachala. And so wake up with Arunachala, beautiful. Then we would walk down. It's called Chicken Farm Road. It's like this dirt road, and then such a small village, yeah. And then there's like this kind of like air quotes resort, and then they have like dosa for like, I don't know, $1. It's like $1 dosa. So you get all of these beautiful chutneys and whatnot. And so we have that. And then after that, we walk to our favorite chai shop on what is called Pradakshina Road, which goes around Arunachala, where the sadhus, live. So they all live there, and we have tea there. And that's it for me. That's life for me. So. Daniel, yes, Jason, you're correct. I do follow the 5 elements written by Wang. Are you? They help you integrate macrocosm and microcosm. Awesome, my friend. I don't think I've read that one, Dan. I'd have to check that out, because I really appreciate watching these. Obviously, the Wahoo Ching, I appreciate his translation. And he's got a few other books too. I'd have to have a look at that, because I've read other books on 5 elements, but I haven't read that. Music Dragon, great live Q&A, Jason. Much appreciated. Good night. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for being with us. Patano, thank you, my friend. Peace be with you. Namaste. Namaste, sir. Or madam. Tobin/Cameron, really enjoyed this. Thank you. Keep up the great work. Cameron, thank you for being with us. I appreciate it. Bing, a month is doable, I think. That's good news. For most people, I believe a month is doable, but for 4 months will get fired. Yeah. Yeah. Look, I know. A month is doable. Interesting. I would really like to take people for a month to either to Tiruvannamalai or Bodh Gaya, just for serious practice, and to just and also to absorb yourself in an atmosphere. Yeah. And it's funny that when you absorb yourself in an atmosphere like that, when you go back to your homelands and your cities and your towns, the energy and the essence is still with you. Yeah. And it gives you a lot of a lot of inspiration, actually, a lot of inspiration. Travis, thank you so much for all the answers. It is truly a privilege to be part of this podcast and this community. Namaskaram to all. Travis, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. First name, last name. Good to have you back. Jason, have you ever taken any initiation of any kind? Not in the typical sense, yeah. So I haven't received initiation through like a mantra or of that type, as opposed to being with masters and that and learning from them, and obviously conversing with them privately too. So I haven't taken on any initiation of that kind where you might receive a mantra or something like that. Patano Productions, yummy. I love Indian food too. Thank you for answering. Oh man, dose is so good. Pani puri. Oh my god, with the dirty water, all in, all in. Dan with the super chat. Dan, you're the man. I always tell you. Thank you, Dan. Patano, I forgot about that one. Yeah, the puri. Oh, I love puri. Come on, don't start me. Art, thank you for wonderful podcast, my friend. Dan, Art, thank you. Patano, oh man, tamarind chutney, mint chutney. Oh my god, the best. Brushstroke, thank you, my friend. Mango lassi, no doubt. Patano, thank you. You're the man. Peace be with you. It's Sir Lol. I'm just getting into Taoism. Thanks to you and your channel. I'm learning a lot. I appreciate it. That's music to my ears. Peace be with you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Obo, thank you for being with us. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Obo. Really appreciate it. Remember, if you haven't given a thumbs up, everyone, give us a thumbs up. I appreciate that. We might go for another 10 minutes, another 15 minutes, and we'll call it at 3 hours, I think. So we'll try and get as much as we can in. It's amazing. Time flies when we're doing these, yeah? It's awesome. I'm just stoked that you enjoy. Jeroen Doppenberg. I recently figured that most people do have a voice in their mind, which they can't stop. I do have that voice, but it is only when I want. What does this mean? Is this good, bad, normal? Well, it's normal for everyone to have that voice. That voice is the ego talking to itself, right? In some sense, can be our own inner critic as well. And as we know with the ego, as it chats to itself, the ego is a funny thing, right? It's kind of, because it is a part of, it's an accumulation of the activity of the mind. It's never settled in what it wants or what it does, right? So, for example, you may do something good, but then the next minute the ego will be in the background chatting to you and putting self-doubt into your mind, right? But the self-doubt doesn't have to be there. It's just the nature of the ego. The nature of the ego is activity and the movement of thoughts, right? So what meditation does is it tries to break up this continuity of thoughts that this voice or the ego feeds on, right? So the ego is just chattering. All it does is chatter. It just chatters. And so the more you dive deeper into your spiritual practice, the more the volume of the ego begins to turn down. Yeah. And the intervals between the thoughts become bigger. Yeah. So it's not that the thoughts themselves will completely disappear, but the more you practice, the intervals between the chattering ego will begin to get larger and larger. And so this will help you, not be consumed by that voice or overwhelmed by the voice. Yeah. The ego, if you will. Michael, namaste, peace within to all. Thank you, Michael. Art, mint lassi, love mint lassi. Come on. This is going to turn into a food stream. I love it. Peaceful me. Hello, Jason. Thank you so much for this energy you're sharing. Thank you, Peaceful. Thank you for being with us. Dan, you going? Dan, see you next time. Thank you for being with us, my friend. Always good to see you, Dan. I appreciate you, my friend. Everyone, remember, if you want to watch the live stream, make sure you become a member on Patreon, because the replays of the live stream will be on there after this is finished. I usually leave this up for a few hours after it's finished for some people to watch, but then I'll just take it off the video list, because obviously I want people more to watch the podcasts and this and that in the video library. There's many reasons. And a live stream is a live stream, right? It's for speaking in the moment as opposed to watching a replay. But I know a lot of people benefit from this. So if you want to watch the replay, I put the replay up on the on Patreon. So if you want to become a member, make sure you support me on Patreon. Or any support is highly appreciated through PayPal or whatever. Links are in the description. I love and appreciate everyone. Okay, brushstroke. Thank you for the love hearts. Love you, my friend. Travis, oops, I meant to say live stream earlier. Trav, I knew what you meant. No dramas. Okay, let's have a look. Daniel Stewart, when Ramana Maharishi sees everyone as Atman, it is like he has one foot in duality and another foot in non-duality. It's true. It is true, Dan. Very true. I mentioned this. I don't know who has read Enlightenment Now. Please let me know if any of you have read Enlightenment Now. But I mentioned it's a Latin scholastic word. It's called A of Eternal, and A of Eternal means like one foot in the temporary world and one foot in the eternal world. So those people who live in an A of eternal reality are on the cusp of time and eternity. So Ramana was like one of these A of eternal individuals. It was on the cusp of time. So, he obviously understood that this is the product, like this reality here is a time-bound reality, so to speak, from one perspective, and also it's also an eternal reality from one perspective. So, and that's where Ramana existed, so to speak. Like he understood the world is non-dual, but also he understood that most people are dwelling in duality. So, Bob, that thing will never be happy. That's true. The ego is never happy, my friend. It's always got an axe to grind, a conflict to seek. It is always out for its best. Mike, good night from North Carolina. Thank you for being with us, Mike. Mike, excellent. Love you, my friend. Thank you for everything, the super chats. 3 hours does go pretty quick, doesn't it? But thank you. You read Enlightenment Now, but you read it too fast. So good. I wrote that one pretty fast. Actually, I wrote that book very fast for whatever reason. I don't know. Michael McKinney, you are helping me a lot to grow the light that seems to exist in my consciousness and in my heart. I found all the answers to my existential questions through my heart, and Taoism is helping. Michael, wow. Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate that. And it makes everything that I do worth it. Trust me. When I get those sorts of messages, it really means a lot. Peace be with you. My ego is like a bad habit that can't seem to break. I feel like the Tao is definitely the way for me. For sure. For sure. Peace be with you. What annoys the ego a lot is when, like, if you look at it especially from a Taoist perspective, if you don't give it a house to play in, so if you don't give it a role and you don't designate it with this sort of position and this and that, it starts to like get agitated, and it fights this kind of variation that Taoism has. Where Taoism, as Lao Tzu says, is like you have variation, right? So tomorrow you can be a garbage cleaner. The next day you can be a cook. and you don't attach to the actual image of yourself that you are creating, right? The ego is trying to always constantly solidify an image in our mind. And once you stop that process, the ego then begins to kind of lose its kind of power over you, so to speak. Yeah. So that's one way to, it's not that the ego will completely disappear. It just means that the power the ego has over you will kind of dissolve. Yeah. Guys, if you give us a thumbs up, we're 10 off of 100. That would be, I would appreciate that. If we get to 100 before the live stream ends, that would be pretty fun. Preston, thank you for everything you do, Jason. Much love to you. I'm going to head out, but I might be able to watch the replay quick. Thank you, Preston. Thank you so much. Guys, the time I'm starting this podcast, is this a good time? Or should I start it an hour earlier because it's getting a bit late for you guys over in North America and what have you? Let me know if it's getting a bit too late for you guys over there. Art, I can go and recruit people from Twitter. Love it. Yeah, because I'm kind of, because when I start this live stream, it's 10 a.m. for me in Australia. And I know it's around, I don't know what sort of time it is in North America. I think it's like maybe 6, 7, 8. I don't know. So I don't really want you guys to be staying up too late. I don't know if there's an ideal time, if I should start it an hour earlier or something like that. Lyle, my experiential lesson this week while listening to me, if I wait patiently, all of my questions will be answered. Thank you, Lyle. Miss Zen, 1 hour earlier would be better, but it's okay. For me, it's 8 p.m. Miss Zen when it starts. Yeah. Jerry on. You're in China. Awesome. Where in China are you? It's 11 a.m. Oh, you're fine then. You in China, you're all right. You're like me. Luther, 11 p.m. now. Okay. I got a feeling you're a night owl, Luther. You're a night owl. 8 p.m. in Washington, that's pretty early for you, Karen, isn't it? That's not too bad. That's good. I like to get some feedback on the time, because it's always difficult because I want to also, for the audiences also in Europe and Africa, in that sort of time zone, it's difficult because like I have to be up at like midnight and to do this, to kind of do. Actually, for everyone, it would be a bit more beneficial if I did the live stream at midnight, my time. But I'd be up to 5 a.m. So that's going to be problematic. Thank you, Jay Lewis. It's perfect for you, Art. That's awesome. It's a great time. Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciation to all of you. Luther, that's a great question, Luther. Thank you. How does one stay sane and healthy in an insane world, in an insane and unhealthy world, not yet completely evolved society, beyond meditation? Just stay in your lane and ignore the madness. Yes, there is a truth to what you're saying there. I mean, you got to remember, like part of like spiritual practice and why a lot of the Vedantic and yogic perspectives, and also why Taoism and Buddhism recommended mental and also physical renunciation, was because of there has always been a little bit of madness in society. And no matter how well-intentioned someone's efforts were, they still didn't take root within the society at large. In saying that, if we look at someone like the Buddha, right, like his teachings have obviously had a big effect on the world. And I'm only using Buddha as an example because they are peaceful teachings, but they are still in the background, right? The focus has always still been, as you're mentioning, Luther, the madness. Yeah. The people who their hearts are maddened. They have a lot of opinions. They focus too much on the negative things in life. And so this can be related also to the negativity bias in evolution, because we do have a negativity bias within our mind. And that's why on YouTube, a lot of drama content and this and that is popular, because of negativity bias. Once someone sees a drama, it's easy click for them. When they see something positive, you know, it's a different story. So I mention in, I don't know whether it's effortless living or fasting the mind, where when we live in a world where we kind of cringe at expressions of love, but we accept expressions of fear and hate, then we are living in an insane society, right? But we see the default mode with most people is they do cringe when they see people who show signs of affection or love, and wish people well. You know, people cringe to this, like, and it's kind of strange. But when it's involved with drama and fear and hate, they are like, oh, they love it. They love it. They jump on board quick, smart. Yeah. So, and so, like, when you say just stay in your lane and ignore the madness, you don't want to say that in the sense of being like, just stay in your lane, like, you know, like you're obeying. Your greatest rebellion to the madness is being a peaceful person and living a positive and uplifting life, Luther. That's the greatest thing you can do. And you know what that does? It annoys people who live in fear. It annoys people who are angry. The reason why I get a lot of hate on the channel is because they see that Guyang and I and the community, we're all chill. We're good. We're happy. We're trying to live a shanti life with the limited time that we have. And we're not going to contribute to the drama. And so you can't drag me down. Can't drag me down. I'm good. I'm happy. You can raise all of these concerns, but those concerns have always been with us. They have always been with us. Problems in the world aren't new. I remember once Sadhguru said, when someone was mentioning to him the turmoil and conflicts in the Middle East, and he said, if you didn't have the internet or you didn't have television, you wouldn't know anything about this. So what makes it different from 1,000 years ago until now is only your understanding that it's happening. Yeah. And so, and in knowing it, what can you do? Are you going to take up a weapon and you're going to go and fight for a certain cause? Like what's the end goal? Yeah. And so the Taoist, especially the Taoist way, is to leave things alone and to follow, and this is the Vedantic and Buddhist sense, is to focus on your own spiritual practice and to be the most peaceful person possible that you can be through your own realization. And that's actually what inspires others, piece by piece. Yeah. We got to remember, we don't have much of an influence in our life. So, but we can influence our immediate circle, our immediate surroundings. Yeah. And that's what I would advise to you, Luther. You don't have to go up in arms, and don't be vexed by these questions that a lot of people want you to be vexed by. Oh, what about this political situation here? What about the hardship of this person and that person? And those problems have always existed. And we have never resolved them through the approach of protesting or forcing our opinions on others, because in forcing our opinions on other people, that creates more problems and creates more conflict, and then it compounds on each other, and then we are in the situation that we are in. Yeah. And no one's ever taken a Taoist approach to life and said, you know what, instead of interfering, why don't we not interfere? If we all don't interfere, what happens? And we all know the answer to that. Starfruit time is good for you. John, Dongwon. Ah, awesome. Good to have you with us, my friend. Luther, you'd prefer an hour earlier? Awesome. Obo, we're all adults. We can stay up. Stay up, no. Don't worry. Thank you, my friend. Obo, damn, your greatest rebellion thing, man. Good stuff. Thank you, Obo. Preston, I'm listening and driving right now. Awesome. What else have we got here? Sarah in the house. Thank you, Sarah. Awesome. One of my professors recently told me Lao Tzu was a mythical figure. I do not think so, but what do you think? Sarah, it's really difficult to say. I mean, there's a lot of different understandings. A lot of people think that he was a historical person, but then they think he was a mythical figure. And some people actually think he was, Lao Tzu referred to a community of people. Mm-hmm. So I've heard Edward Slingerland say the Laotians were like their original hippies. Yeah. So, and look, I would leave that debate for the professors in uni. And not be overly concerned about that. I take the Buddhist approach on whether Lao Tzu existed or not. And the Buddhist approach to the Buddha is that they don't really care if Buddha didn't exist or did exist. But the story is valid. The philosophy is valid. And then you can make up your own mind whether you think the Gautama the Buddha was a historical figure or not. And there's a lot of indication that Gautama the Buddha was a historical figure. There's not as much for Lao Tzu. That's the problem. And that's where a lot of people start to make certain claims, as opposed to Zhuangzi, right? Zhuangzi, we know Zhuangzi existed. Zhuangzhou was his name. Zhuangzi means Master Zhuang. So, yeah. So, guys, I hope you've enjoyed. We're over 3 hours now. Thank you for everyone. Thank you. Much appreciated to all of you. And yeah, I appreciate you all. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the live stream. Remember, if you want to watch the replay, head on over to Patreon, become a member. And I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. I hope you enjoy the content. Sunday, we got the 9th chapter of the Tao Te Ching podcast. So make sure you don't miss that yet, the 9th chapter of the Tao Te Ching podcast. And have a good day. Shanti to everyone. Jaron, you moved from Holland to Thailand to China. Awesome. All right. The absence of negativity. Awesome. That's awesome. Starfrit, Shanti, my friend. Thank you, Luther. Awesome. Love you, my friend. Always good to see you. Jay Lewis, thank you. Art, the best. Love you, my friend. Jace Solhoff, first time in here. And I get a good feeling, by the way. The time is 5 in Norway. Oh, Jay, awesome. 5 in Norway. Wow. I hope you enjoyed. I've been to Norway. I love Norway. Beautiful place. Miss Zen, thank you. Sarah, thank you so much. You guys, Aaron, thank you, Aaron Ball. Awesome. Peace be with you. Good night. Yeah, I just love and appreciate you all. Namaskaram, Preston. All right, guys. Have a good day, and I'll see you guys in the next live stream. One more like, Art. All right. Just get it going, everyone. Get that like. Bye-bye. See you, everyone.